advisor turned vocal critic, was indicted yesterday by a federal grand jury in Maryland. He is expected an initial court appearance today.
Two senior federal law enforcement sources, both and John Bolton, President Trump's former national security advisor turned vocal critic, was indicted yesterday by a federal grand jury in Maryland. He is expected to surrender to authorities and make an initial court appearance today, according to two senior federal law enforcement sources. Bolton is now the third high-profile political adversary of the president to face criminal charges in less than 1 month, joining former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. He faces 18 counts related to the transmission and retention of national defense information. Prosecutors say Bolton stored diary-like entries about his time in government that included classified information, and then shared more than 1,000 pages of that information with two family members who did not have security clearances. Bolton is denying any wrongdoing, comparing the Trump administration to Joseph Stalin's secret police, who said, "You show me the man and I'll show you the crime." Bolton went on to
build a website you love with Wix, where your words create your brand, your opportunity, your breakthrough.
Bolton went on to say, in part, quote, "These charges are not just about Trump's focus on me or my diaries, but his intensive effort to intimidate his opponents. Dissent and disagreement are foundational to America's constitutional system and vitally important to our freedom." Attorney General Pam Bondi, meanwhile, welcomed the charges, writing in part, quote, "No one is above the law." Jonathan Lemire, let's stop right there. Let's talk about these charges and what they're exactly looking at here with this former national security advisor.
Yeah, we had a similar victory lap-like statement from FBI Director Cottrell yesterday as well. It is well known. John Bolton, who did briefly work for the president and national security advisor in Trump's first term, has turned a sharp critic of Trump, including in recent months how he's handled the situation in Ukraine. In fact, he's drawn Trump's wrath on Truth Social a number of times, most recently around the Putin summit in Anchorage 2 months back that yielded very little. And now we have a moment here where a retribution campaign is continuing. We know it's James Comey, it's Letitia James, Trump.
We'll continue with this video. Thank you for joining. We are live on YouTube today. Thank you for watching. I'll also be posting these on my other channels, so please make sure you subscribe to all the channels I have. I have 5 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. You can follow me on Substack, on TikTok, on Patreon, X, and GETTR. There's many ways to follow my work. Please share the links, ask your social media to follow me, and better yet, get the great products that I have on my store. I have ebooks, supplements, and course material in immunology and pulmonology. If you pay attention to how to stack these great products that I have, you'll be able to slow down the aging process, have more vitality, have more longevity, and weather the storm in the fall and the winter. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great products such as the structural nano silver toothpaste. This has no fluoride. This will whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, help with the health of the gum line, reduce inflammation at the gum line, and neutralize. This is super important to take during the fall and the winter. You should be taking this every day throughout the whole year, but especially for the fall and the winter, you need this. So please go to my store, get a few tubes of this toothpaste, and be prepared for the fall and the winter. Another great way to be prepared for the fall and the winter is to get the structural nano silver soaps that I have. Lavender. I also have it in peppermint. Very high quality structural nano silver soaps. I also have it in charcoal tea tree and in lemongrass. Get a few bars for your household, very high quality, and help support the work that I do. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. It's all caps, discount 5, the number 5. Get $5 off any order. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and be prepared for the fall and the winter. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos.
Just this week, Mika, as we've been talking about, from the Oval Office with the Attorney General standing and the FBI Director standing alongside him, naming other individuals he would want to see indicted. This one, though, does seem a little different. And for more on that, let's bring in MSNBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delaney. So, Ken, people I've talked to say, look, this is still a broad pattern of retribution. There's still great concern how the president is shattering norms and directing his DOJ, either specifically or just by, naming villains, if you will, naming foes, and others kind of get the hint to who they go after. But the John Bolton case was described to me is a little different than Comey and James. There's a little more of a there. Walk us through what you know about this particular matter.
Good morning, Jonathan. Good morning, guys. You're absolutely right. I think it's a lot different, actually. This is what my sources are telling me than those other cases, which appear to be largely without merit. This one, though, arose in the Biden administration, and this is a very serious and detailed indictment. It says that John Bolton derived secrets from his time as national security advisor, assembled them because he was writing a book, sent them over unclassified email and messaging apps to his wife and daughter. We've identified the two people as his wife and daughter. And then that information was hacked by the government of Iran. It was one of those email accounts was hacked. And so the government of Iran obtained some of these state secrets, according to this indictment. And the indictment says that Bolton used language that made clear he knew he was talking about sensitive information. Things like the intel briefer said, or when in the situation room, I learned. So these charges, as you said, carry 10 years each. So he could spend the rest of his life in prison, in theory, if convicted on these charges. But let me tell you what the defense could be here. I should add that, and this case is being prosecuted by career prosecutors, respected people, unlike the Comey and the James case, which was avoided by every career prosecutor in the department and pursued only by Donald Trump's political appointee. This one has gone through normal channels, as we understand it. But let me explain some potential mitigating circumstances here. Lots of people who have jobs where they see classified information write books. And they send the manuscript through a publication review, for example, if you're a CIA officer. And oftentimes those reviewers will say, sorry, you can't say that. It was classified. We're keeping that out of the book. Well, that information was classified. It went over an unclassified email system. Those people don't get prosecuted for doing that. So what's at issue here are not documents marked classified, which was the case in the Donald Trump indictment. This was information that John Bolton gathered and wrote down in diaries and sent that the FBI and the CIA and other people have determined contain national defense information. And when you look at the descriptions in the indictment, it's pretty clear that some of it probably did. But the question here is, where is the line for people who are writing books? John Bolton did go through the publication review process here. Now there's allegations that he ignored some of the suggestions from people about what to leave out of the book. But there's a lawyer named Mark Zaid who represents a lot of people who write books. And what he was saying last night is that if you're going to prosecute John Bolton, you got to prosecute a lot of other people who wrote books and had potentially classified information on their email systems, which was then left out of the books, but which was actually sensitive. And the other thing is, Abby Lowell, John Bolton's lawyer, is saying here that this was not classified. This was information that he kept for diaries, and he said that the FBI has known about this for a long time, and that's true. This arose in the Biden administration, but what seems to be the case is that they did not know the extent of what was in at least one of his email accounts until they discovered that they discovered the material that Iran had hacked through a U.S. intelligence penetration of Iran. That's according to my reporting, and that's one of the reasons this case didn't go forward in the Biden administration, because officials were concerned about revealing that penetration. The Trump administration has made a different calculation. They're okay with revealing it. They've revealed it now to the Iranians. But whatever penetration they had is now shut down. That's how badly they wanted to prosecute John Bolton. And that's where you can ask questions about whether this case should have gone forward, guys.
Really important reporting there. MSNBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delaney. Ken, thank you as always. And Ken makes the great point here. There is, there are differences between Comey and James cases in this one. These are career prosecutors. This is an investigation that's been going on for a long time. There does seem to be, at least per the indictment, some evidence of wrongdoing, but it's about selective prosecution. It's the idea like this is something that a lot of people in Washington who have high-level jobs, access to classified information, have to deal with. But yet it's just Bolton, a Trump critic, who's the one facing potentially now criminal charges.
Amazing how MSNBC is so focused that John Bolton is being targeted by the Trump administration. There are others that are just like John Bolton. Really? What about John Bolton when they were raiding Mar-a-Lago, and John Bolton went on almost every single news network in the world, not just the country, the world, to demonize Trump. And the thing is that Trump was allowed to have these classified materials because he was the president of the United States. Hillary Clinton wasn't supposed to have classified materials. John Bolton wasn't supposed to have classified materials. Not even Vice President Biden should have had classified materials. But they'll find ways to demonize Trump because it's MSNBC. But when Trump was being indicted or being investigated, right? They try to deep six his career as a politician. It's amazing. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Be prepared for the fall and the winter. Get the Max 35. It's 35 parts per million. Or the Cleanse, which is 30 parts per million. Use it the same way. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. Swish it in your mouth. Gargle about 20, 30 seconds, and then swallow it. What this will do is maintain your mucosal barrier, help with the oral hygiene of the oral cavity and your oral pharynx. It'll help with the mucosal barrier and help with the health of your epithelial cells. This is really important, especially in the fall and the winter this year. So make sure that you gargle and you swish your mouth 20 seconds with either the Max 35 or the Cleanse. And by doing that every day, you're boosting up your immune system. Now, if you're not feeling well or someone around you is not feeling well, take a tablespoon or two a day and then go back to your maintenance dose when everything's all clear. But it's really important to do this on a regular basis, especially in the fall and the winter. I've been doing this protocol for over 5 years. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Also, something that's really important to get to boost up your immune system is taking the magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc will boost up that immune system and help with brain function. Magnesium also increases the efficacy of vitamin D3. Vitamin C and magnesium will help with your skin, your immune system, and your brain function. So please go to my store, stack these together, especially in the fall and the winter, and boost up that immune system. Please go to my store, use discount 5 to get $5 off any order. All caps, discount 5. All right, now we're going to go to CNN talking about the mayoral candidate debate that happened yesterday.
I tell the president is if he ever wants to come for New Yorkers in the way that he has been, he's going to have to get through me as the next mayor of the city.
If you try to get tough with Trump, the only people who are going to suffer from that are the people of New York.
Okay, when I'm fighting for New York, I am not going to stop.
We're standing by to see you pretty.
If the assemblyman is elected mayor, Donald Trump will take over New York City and it will be Mayor Trump.
We
who
have
runs
to,
New York
we
City.
have to move on.
President Trump loomed large tonight over the race to become New York City's next mayor. In the first general election debate that we saw, it featured the Democratic nominee, Zohran Mamdani, the former governor, Andrew Cuomo, who is now running as an independent after losing to Mamdani, and the Republican nominee, Curtis Sliwa, who, and as we watched all this play out, oftentimes on that debate stage, as they were taking questions, the political attacks turned very personal.
Has never had a job. On his resume, it says he interned for his mother. This is not a job for a first timer. Any day you could have a hurricane, you're, God forbid, a 9/11, a health pandemic. If you don't know what you're doing, people will die.
Mr. Mamdani,
Yeah.
want to respond?
And if we have a health pandemic, then why would New Yorkers turn back to the governor who sent seniors to their death in nursing homes? That's the kind of experience that's on offer here today. When I don't have an experience, I make up for in integrity. And when you don't have an integrity, you can never make up for experience.
Joining me now, CNN's Gloria Pashmino, who has been following this debate from Rockefeller Center. Gloria, that was quite the debate, a lot of moments that clearly stood out. As someone who's been covering this race as closely as you have, I wonder what your biggest takeaways were.
Look, Caitlin, the big question going into this debate was whether or not Andrew Cuomo was going to be able to sort of make out any clearer lane that he's been able to do so far, and whether or not he was going to be able to capture more support by performing in any different way. And we saw Cuomo sort of start out by trying to be a bit joyful, by trying to be more energetic. But eventually he retreated to much of what we've seen over the past several months, attacking Mamdani over his lack of experience, some of his proposals, and trying to point to his own executive experience as former governor of the state of New York. But as you mentioned, President Donald Trump looming large over this debate. There were several questions that were brought up throughout the 2-hour debate about how these candidates would deal with a Trump administration. And we've seen Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee, constantly try to tie Andrew Cuomo to President Trump. And we know from our own reporting that Trump has been very interested in this race. He has said that he believes Cuomo is the better candidate. There were a few times during this debate that it turned slightly personal, particularly over Mamdani's identity as a Muslim. In fact, he would make history as New York City's first elected Muslim mayor. And he pointed out that Andrew Cuomo had not started to campaign in that community until now. Take a listen.
His
Can you
divisiveness
address the question
is
that we're going to
chronic.
you? I think you've made the point, but can you please answer about your own relationship with the Muslim community? You did not visit mosques for many years. More recently, you have been.
Yeah, I don't think in any way the assemblyman is representative of the Muslim community, which is a vital community in New York City. And I am very fond of, and I've been working with.
It took me to get you to even see those Muslims as part of this city. And that, frankly, is something that is shameful and is why so many New Yorkers have lost faith in this politics.
Yeah, except,
You know,
that is
as
totally
a-
false. I
as
worked
a-
with the Muslim community for many
Name a
years.
single mosque you went to when you were the governor. Can you name a single mosque you went to in 10 years?
Before you were ever here. They were
Before
in
I was
this-
here.
Before you were even in state government.
When you travel, travel well.
This isn't the garage anymore. This is what comes next. You did what most can't. Turned one idea into thousands of shipments. One spark into a brand that
Killen, I do also need to mention the role of the Republican candidate in this race, Curtis Sliwa, who has never had government experience, has never held political office, but who has gotten a lot of support from New Yorkers and had a pretty impressive performance during tonight's debate. He was placed in the middle of the two candidates, and he constantly attacked Andrew Cuomo. That is significant because Andrew Cuomo has openly appealed to Republicans here in New York, trying to get Republicans to vote for him and not Curtis Sliwa, saying that Curtis Sliwa is not really a serious candidate. But Sliwa appeared tonight to have come prepared for that and spent a lot of tonight's debate attacking him. Caitlin?
Yeah, it was quite a moment up there on the stage. Gloria Pedrino, thank you for updating us.
This race is Mamdani's to lose, it seems, at this point. What do you think happens after this debate? How do you think it helps or hurts his campaign?
Well, I'll start by saying that in this debate, considering that he's ahead by double digits and has been in virtually every public poll, the bar for him was don't F up, and he certainly didn't do that. There were attacks that didn't land, and he defended himself pretty well, and he didn't make a big gaffe. What comes afterward is him trying to sell New Yorkers on his policy. The campaign is by and large done. It's what he's good at. He's charismatic, speak well, but it's time to help business leaders, to help skeptics understand what his vision is and how he seeks to accomplish that. Tomorrow already, he's poised to hold a reverse town hall where he's asking questions of New Yorkers so they can understand their needs and wants.
That's interesting. I mean, and to your point, I mean, this latest Fox News poll has Mamdani over 50% at 52%. Cuomo is pretty far behind at 28%. So he's starting to, if the question was, can he bring undecided people in? It sounds like he's starting to do that. And to Emily's point, I mean, now this is going to be, what kind of mayor is he going to be?
Let's wait till election day, right? I mean, I think the problem is we act sometimes, you know, whoever wins the Democratic primary is appointed mayor. There's not, you know, you winning a Democratic primary is important, but less than 10% of voters of all New York City voted for him. Look, I think Mamdani is an incredibly talented campaigner. Clearly, he's quick, and he won tonight's debate on style points. I actually think Andrew Cuomo won on substance, though, because there are issues about his policies and his experience that are absolutely relevant to take into account. Never having a job, never having run an executive office when you're taking a, you know, a $119 billion budget and a 300,000 person office.
I think New Yorkers know that at this point.
No, I don't know that they do.
I feel like that's the whole story behind Mamdani.
There's something we feel good about. I just, you know, this is, you know.
The problem is that many people that are going to be voting for Mamdani are millennials that can't find jobs or are underemployed or having a difficult time living in New York. Now, should they be in New York? No, they shouldn't be in New York. They want to live the lifestyle of a New Yorker, but they shouldn't be in New York. But the thing is that these younger individuals could swing the election here to a socialist, a communist, a Marxist. We're not talking about just a little bit of socialism. This guy is on steroids with socialism. Brought to you by millennials.
There was a line tonight. Cuomo's been pushing this about, you know, Mamdani not publicizing it, but it believes in decriminalizing prostitution. And he was pushing him on that. And Mamdani said, well, look, I don't think, you know, I think that it's an issue of economic opportunity. I don't know that that's going to land terribly well. And I also think that this is the
OnlyFans users? Okay, that's actually a fair point because, yeah.
I think you're right. I think America knows what his positions are. America knows that he's not particularly qualified. America knows the positions he's taken on as it relates to Israel. And I'm not sure the New Yorkers, by and large, are showing that they care. That his campaign style, his energy, all the things that go along with him seem to be outweighing all the negatives. And, you know, I know we have an election come up, but it doesn't look like Andrew Cuomo's catching up.
I'm just saying, like, you know, we've seen polls be off a lot. I'm not making any predictions here. I'm just saying this is a hardcore executive job. And your policies matter. And your experience matters. And those are rational things to take into account when people go to the polls. And let's not count anything.
Let me just play real quick. This is Trump's threat to New York if Mamdani wins. He's made this threat a couple times now. And, you know, I think New Yorkers probably also have to take this into consideration.
We have a communist who's 33 years old, doesn't know a damn thing, practically he's never worked a day in his life. And he sort of caught on, right? And I'm not gonna send a lot of money to New York. I don't have to, you know, the money comes all through the White House. And if they're gonna be sending us stupid policies, I mean, communist policies, we're not gonna ruin one of our great cities, because we'll make that great.
Can he do that? Should he do that? I mean.
Well, I'm not exactly sure how much that every dollar passes through the White House. I'm not really sure how that.
Apparently, this administration.
Yeah, this is a man from New York, cares deeply about the city, concerned about Mamdani. Yes, he realizes the political positives that Mamdani's victory has in 2026. Yeah, for him, look, socialism seems to be the word of the day in New York, but it isn't outside of New York, and he's gonna be a huge benefit for Republicans.
Affordability is the word of the day in New York across the country, and Mamdani is somebody who made that the central core of his campaign and never swayed away from it. So irrespective of some of the other style issues and policy issues where he may be somewhat problematic, affordability is what people are ready for.
Affordability is always best thing, but good candidates and good campaigns matter when, and he's.
It's about authenticity and affordability, and those are two things that Mamdani has pushed incredibly effectively.
All right, let's take a
Coming
look
to
at
the stage
There's
this
another
Friday.
CNN. There's another CNN video dealing with Trump says he told Putin about the Tomahawk missiles during the call. But there's also a video that just was posted about Mamdani and Cuomo on Fox News. Let's play that one. But before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great probiotics that I have. I have it in veggie cap and also in powdered form. I prefer to take the powdered form because I take a lot of different supplements that are in a powdered form. But some individuals prefer the veggie cap. Both are very high quality probiotics that you should be taking every day. Make sure you drink it with filtered water. But you can improve your gut biome by taking these probiotics. And by improving your gut biome, you're going to be able to absorb your nutrients better. Your metabolism will improve. You'll reduce leaky gut syndrome. You'll have a better immune system at the gut level. Your mucosal lining will be thicker. Your concentrations of IgA, which is a type of antibody, will increase. You'll have better sleep. And when you have better sleep, you'll be well rested. You'll consolidate memory better. You'll be getting rid of brain fog. You're detoxifying your central nervous system when you have good sleep. In addition, you'll have a better communication with your gut and your liver. So your metabolism will work better, your liver will function better, and your skin will improve. So please, good health starts at the gut. So please go to my store and get the probiotics and take it with the complete multivitamin. This complete multivitamin is easy to digest and has the multivitamins that you need as cofactors for enzymatic activity so your cells are performing the way they should be. And when you're doing that at the cellular level, then your tissues and your organ systems will perform better. This is the foundation of my anti-aging protocol, taking this multivitamin and the probiotics, and then you build off of it. When you build off of it, you add the Max 35 or the cleanse that will boost up your immune system. The second pillar, C60, soak up those free radicals, bring down inflammation. Turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans brings down inflammation, boosts up your immune system, and helps with your vascular system and brain function. Because by bringing down inflammation at the cerebral level, you're helping your neurons, you're protecting your neurons. And taking Boomer Boost will boost up your energy levels and rev up your metabolism. When you pay attention to the foundation, those 4 pillars, you're targeting all the major components of aging. When you're targeting those, you're slowing down the aging process. So please go to my store, take my advice, get the great products that I have. And also, I've partnered up with Rainbow Herbals and we've developed these deodorants. You can get it in peppermint, lavender and tea tree, or citrus. It's for males or females. It has no aluminum, no baking soda. It's made from essential ingredients from the Himalayas. Very high quality ingredients. You use it as a daily deodorant, but will also help to detoxify your body. And when you detoxify your body regularly, you're helping your immune system and your endocrine system. This is very important, especially for the fall and the winter season. Please go to my store and get the great deodorant bars that I have available. All right, let's play Fox News and their take of Mamdani.
I ordered 200 hand-forged knives to my dorm room and built a Wix website to sell them. I'm Noah Rosen, founder of.
Meanwhile, in New York City, mayoral frontrunner Zohran Mamdani lead is growing among likely and registered voters, according to Fox News polls. 52% of likely voters backing Mamdani, with independent candidate Andrew Cuomo trailing behind at 28%. GOP candidate Curtis Sliwa polling at just 14% before the candidates met to debate their policies last night.
And there'll be another debate, but last night was a big one. Mamdani faced a lot of pushback on how he plans to pay for his costly agenda that includes rent control, universal child care, and free and fast buses.
Tell New Yorkers tonight how you're going to pay for all of this in 1 minute if you can.
Look, a lot of people have called even my campaign a non-starter when we first began. And now I stand before you proud to be the Democratic nominee who got the most votes in city primary history. And I believe we will see the same thing with our push to ensure that we are taxing the wealthiest and the most profitable corporations.
Plato warned us in The Republic, written a long time ago. We're talking about Greek philosophy here. He warned us of people like him. Because what will happen is that democracy will start to erode and you'll lead to tyranny. And this whole social democratic bullshit is going to lead us into tyranny in this country. And he's the start of it. Marxism is a cancer. And when there's a cancer, you got to dig it out.
The fair amount that they should pay.
But again, Mr. Mamdani, I know Governor Hochul indicated this week there may be some open windows, but more or less income tax on millionaires is off the table, according to the governor.
Look, I've said very clearly, making buses fast and free costs about $700 million a year. Making universal child care a reality costs about $5 or $6 billion a year. If you raise the state's top corporate tax rate to match that of New Jersey, you'd be raising $5 billion in and of itself.
Well, Zoran, boy, your fantasies are never going to come about in terms of funding everything you want that's going to be free. It's a fantasy. Let's deal with the reality.
The Assemblyman's whole plan is based on a myth. He said he's going to raise the taxes the same as New Jersey, corporate tax. No, it would be double the tax. You would see New Yorkers on 995 fleeing to Florida.
Governor Cuomo is 100% right, but I digress. And just over the bridge in New Jersey, Republican Jack Cottrell is closing the gap on Democrat Mikey Sherrill. According to a Fox News poll, get this, Cottrell is now trailing by only 5 points among likely voters after trailing by 8 points last month.
Cheryl, on the other hand, losing points on honesty and trust among registered voters, dropping 4 points since September. Cottrell losing just 1 point in that category.
All right, so we have a lot to go over now. Let's begin, of course, let's go in New York City. So in New York City, Mamdani needed a knockout. Cuomo needed a knockout.
Sure enough.
And I did. And basically, they say he didn't answer any questions, Mamdani. And look, he was smooth, but he didn't really come to define any policies. And I thought Governor Cuomo spent a lot of time explaining, what's about the accusations? What about the COVID deaths? What about the advance you got on your book? So when you're explaining your own background, it doesn't really work. The best, most clearest guy is Curtis Sliwa. He's just trailing by way too much.
Well, it was really the top two individuals in this race are Mamdani and Cuomo. So the gloves really came off between those two. And Mamdani said he would not denounce globalize the Intifada and said he was horrified by the genocide of the Palestinians. And remember on Martha's show, he said, I really don't have an opinion on whether or not Hamas should put down their weapons. When he was asked about that, he said, of course, I believe they should lay down their arms.
Yeah, how do you do that 2 days later? I mean, that's how you know you can't trust anything. He was given an opportunity in a show to just condemn Hamas and go after.
Well, and
then
remember,
2 days later, he all of a sudden gets an answer for it.
and he said that Israel shouldn't be a Jewish state.
Right.
He said that in the past.
But do you understand? That's how we feel. But do you know the next generation of Americans, even Republicans, are not pro-Israel? So he's worried about, doing the thing that would help him with mainstream. But he didn't get a bulk of mainstream. He got new voters. So how do you not alienate them? Plus, he probably agrees with them.
Right.
And go ahead and try to win the general population.
Well, in a Fox News poll, voters were asked, what's the #1 problem facing New York City? And the most said crime, 25%, 20% said the cost of living, 16% lack of affordable housing, and 8% homelessness and mental health.
I would just add to this, when you say crime is the #1 thing, it comes, how does Mamdani want to handle crime? He has not agreed to renew Jessica Tisch, who's done an unbelievable job here.
He says he's not ready to make a decision.
That would be the biggest layoff.
Idiotic.
And he's got this civilian, this must drive me
Yeah.
crazy. The Civilian Complaint Review Board. No, he can't explain what it's gonna do, but his board will decide how cops will be punished or not punished, fined or fired. And you never take that away from the commission.
How's that gonna work out? This is the shocking part, when it comes to the people and the candidates that they trust for the best job on cost of living. Mamdani gets it by 49%, Sliwa's at 17%, Cuomo's at 32% on housing, 49% is for Mamdani, 16% for Sliwa, 33% for Cuomo. And Ainsley, when it comes to taxes.
Yeah.
That's crazy. This is a Fox poll, and he's saying that Mamdani is considered to do the best job for crime. The problem, most likely, Mamdani will win New York mayoral race. There will be when it comes to socialism and freebies, there seems to be a positive thing that happens in the society at the very beginning. And then it starts to go down because the costs start to go up and it starts to become inefficient and people start leaving the city. All right. So, because if socialism, Marxism was great, why would people be fleeing socialistic countries and want to come to America? Right. I mean, if socialism was so great, why are these people leaving these socialistic countries? So the bottom line is that when socialism comes into an environment, that first year or so, maybe even 2 years, there's an uptick in affordability. But then all of a sudden it starts to go down. The affordability function starts to go negative. When Mamdani gets into office and institutes some of these policies, at the very beginning, it'll look like for individuals that are middle class or poor to be having their affordability a little bit better. And that will go into 2026 midterm election. So there will be a lot of infighting that will be going on. Well, not infighting. There'll be a lot of rhetoric between the Republican and the Democratic Party during the midterm election about this socialism, this democratic socialism. If Mamdani is successful for that first few months of his administration, going into the several months into his administration, going into the midterm election, the Democratic Party is going to say, look at what Mamdani can do to make it more affordable in a city, not realizing that after the midterm election, that's when you're going to start seeing things starting to go sour in New York. So will it help the Republican Party in the midterm elections? If they can demonize socialism enough and Mamdani is unsuccessful, then it will help the Republican Party during the midterm. If Mamdani is slightly successful with his policies in New York and the Republican Party fails to convince the wider public about the fear of Marxism and this democratic socialism, if they fail in the rhetoric, then the Republican Party will do worse in the midterms. Now, what will happen, either way, if the Republican Party wins the midterm election at the federal level or loses, what will happen is that in 2027, you'll start to see most likely the policies that Mamdani is instituting in New York starting to take hold that are negative. And that will launch a Republican Party that controls the legislative branch and the executive branch. So you may have loss of seats for the Republican Party during the midterm election. But in the long run, the Republican Party will most likely be able to use this as a test, a petri dish test, and say, look, socialism doesn't work, especially in the strongest economic, most viable city that we have in the United States. But I have a feeling that that first 7-8 months of Mamdani's administration, it may seem as though he's successful. Now, there may be some infighting that goes on between the mayoralship and the city council. If there is, then that will slow down the effects of Mamdani. Now, there's two parts to that. If they slow down the effects of Mamdani, then he's still mayor, but he's not able to institute his policies, and it keeps things stable. All right? But what also could happen by hamstringing Mamdani, things may get worse in New York in terms of affordability, and Mamdani can say, oh, you didn't help with these policies, and therefore I wasn't able to help the city. And it may strengthen the Democratic case in the midterm election. So there's a lot of variables here that we need to find out. Will Mamdani's policies be successful at the very beginning? If not, then he's a dead duck. All right, and the Democratic Party is going to lose in the midterm election if he's out of the box failing. Usually, socialism doesn't fail right out of the box. Socialism is somewhat successful for that first 12 months. Then all of a sudden, it starts collapsing, and it collapses fast. But if you have Mamdani in a high-profile election like the mayoralship for New York City, it launches this new ultra-left wing of the Democratic Party. So this was the reason why keeping him out of the mayoralship is so important. But unfortunately, it looks like he's going to win because Cuomo is not a strong candidate. He's not a strong candidate. And Silwa, whatever, however you pronounce his name. Silwa, he's taking votes away from Cuomo. But unfortunately, Cuomo is a part of the establishment that people do not want to bring on. He would fall. I guess he would fall into one of the younger boomers. He's not Gen X, I don't think. I think he's in his 60s. So you have a young generation that's wanting Mamdani because he's promising affordability. So I'm very concerned that his policies may actually work for the first 12 months, and that gives the Democratic Party cover to go into the midterm elections and be potentially successful. But democratic socialism in the end will fail. And this will be very evident after the midterm election. And so it will be very positive for the Republican Party in the general election of 2028. But I'm not so sure how this is all going to pan out for 2026 midterm election. The convention of wisdom is that it's going to be very strong for the Republican Party. But I'm not so sure about that. I'm not so sure.
For that, he gets 47% on taxes. And then crime, he gets the most with 40%. They trust him the most. He'll do the better job, they say.
How crazy is that? That a guy that wants to let criminals out, close Rikers Island, have social workers to domestic disputes, and he gets the best marks on crime.
I'm not a New Yorker, so maybe You I don't- live in New I- York.
Pay
I don't
taxes here.
understand the connection. Maybe there's just a different. I get the housing thing because he's talking about affordability and all of this, but the crime thing, saying that you're gonna defund the police, I don't understand how that's good
But
for.
here's
First of all, he's only gonna help with people that are on some sort of city subsidized control rent. All right, but the affordability problem is even in that group of people that don't qualify for that. He's not gonna solve that problem. He's only gonna solve it for the poor, not the middle class. All right, so so this is gonna be a problem here. It's about, you gotta bring on more units. In the convertibility between a commercial property to a residential property has problems with fire code issues, because the rooms have to be by a window. Well, when these commercial buildings weren't designed to be converted to meet fire code standards. So either the fire code standards have to change, which I doubt they will, or it needs to be extensive renovation to make these units affordable. Because the way to convert a commercial property into a residential that's affordable would be making, well, not affordable, but commercial, I'll call it commercially viable to the ones that are doing the renovation, is to have large footprint. Well, if it's a large footprint, it's gonna be a higher cost dwelling. You can't divide those units up small enough because of the fire code issue. So you either bring down the building, or you have to hollow the building out in the center to be able to have some sort of means to have access through a window. Well, no developer in their right mind is gonna do that unless they get some serious tax breaks. So there's a problem. There's a big problem with this. New York would not have this problem if they could bring down the building and then bring up a new building that's residential. But that's not how it's gonna go. There's gonna be lots of commercial buildings that are being underutilized that should be converted to residential but can't because of the regulations. And we're talking about safety and fire code regulations. Big problem.
Your bills you're gonna make less money.
100%.
Your taxes will go up.
100%.
So when it comes to your housing, you're gonna have to skimp in other areas. Yeah.
So here is a look at how the candidates tackled crime.
We have the architect. Building more affordable housing is critical for our city. On November 4th, New Yorkers can vote for an affordable housing tax credit and other city charter reform.
So flip your ballot over and vote on questions 2 through 6.
Make your voice heard on the future of our city.
Every season brings new stories in your neighborhood. With Carrot, it's
We have the architect and we have the apprentice of no cash bail, which has been a disaster. We have the architect and the apprentice here of Raise the Age. My own son was almost killed because of that in a gang attack. We have the architect and we have the apprentice of Close Rikers Island, which would just release criminals in the street. Thank God I'm not a professional politician, because they have helped create this crime crisis in the city that we face.
I would add 5,000 police, put 1,500 in the subways, raise the starting salary because you can't hire them. Part of that is going to be saying to the NYPD, I respect you. I don't think you're wicked, as the assemblyman said. I don't think you're corrupt. I don't think you're racist. I value you. I will have your back. I'll be a mayor to work with you.
If you want an actual approach to lower crime, look at our Department of Community Safety. That is something that has been hailed by experts as addressing so many of the pieces of why New Yorkers are not feeling safe today. We will ensure that no longer are police officers asked to do the job of both policing and responding to the mental health crisis. This is evidence-based. It's been successful elsewhere in the country. It's time we deliver it right here in New York City.
He's delusional. You're gonna have mental health experts, counselors, social workers show up to the most dangerous call a cop get, which is a domestic violence call. So you're gonna have people that didn't sign up for that profession have violent attacks against them. That is the most. What you're gonna put bulletproof vests on them as they're going out there to talk with these candidates? It's crazy.
I just to add to this, one of the other categories is how you gonna deal with President Trump. And
Oh,
Governor
yeah.
Cuomo says, look, I've had fights with Trump before, but I have to work with him. Stewart says, I don't have a great relationship with President Trump, but I'm gonna work with him. I think that Mamdani is gonna be Princeton 2.0. It's everything. He's pro-sanctuary city. He's pro-illegal immigrants. There is gonna be, and we know they use the National Guard and the subways to make us feel better, hundreds of thousands of them. So when President Trump, if he wins, and when President Trump goes to crack down on crime, because this guy's going to let open the floodgates to Rikers and not arrest anybody, there's going to be solid friction. And as Cuomo says, like, are you an idiot? How can you possibly fight with a guy that has billions of dollars in his coffers to give you or not give you? You have to work with him.
I just can't believe these polls. I can't believe so many people in New York are falling for this guy based on his policies. But I guess they here in an area.
There's not enough people that are conservative. There's not enough people that are conservative pushing back in New York. They're all a bunch of liberals, and they're pushing for Mamdani. And people need to stand up and say, you know what? It's about individualism, not collectivism. It's about capitalism, not communism. And a vote for fucking Mamdani is voting for a Marxist. He's voting. You're voting for something that's collectivism, and collectivism always leads to a degraded society.
If they hear, oh, this guy's going to lower my costs, but every politician has said he should have done that when he was an assemblyman. He had the ability to do all of these things, but we had Eric Adams on our couch, and he said, "Trust me, I'm the mayor." He doesn't have the ability to change all of these policies.
By the way, so if you he wants to get those horrible rich people. So if you make $1 million, do you know how many hours you're probably working? Does he ever think about hard work and how that relates? Number two, do you want to take now, if you do it, over 50%? So if you figure in city tax, state tax, federal tax. So if you make $1 million, now you have to give away $540,000. Yep. So you're working 60 hours a week, doing the best you can to get to that threshold. And now he's trying to say, how dare you? I'm going to give that to other people. All right? That's just not the way our country works. I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brighteon Channel.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to.
All right, so we're going to go to CNN talking about the Tomahawk missiles. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Goodnight Formula. Goodnight Formula has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower, so you can have the 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. So you're consolidating memory, detoxifying your central nervous system, and you'll be well rested. By having a good sleep, you're actually going to slow down the aging process. Please go to my store and get the Goodnight Formula. It's really important because in the next 5 years, for people that are 40 years of age or older, there's going to be about 30% of the individuals that that fit into this cohort group will probably get early onset of dementia. So you better start protecting your neurons now. Why is this happening? It's an aftershock of the crisis of 2020. Now, you can pay attention to me or not pay attention to me. I don't fucking care. But if you do pay attention to me, you're going to be able to mitigate the problem. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Goodnight Formula. Why? Because it's going to help to protect your neurons and slow down the aging process. Get the omega-3. Omega-3 will bring down inflammation and help with your lipid profile and prevent your red blood cells from sticking too much. Very important, especially during the fall and the winter. Why? Because of the S1 and S2 subunit that most likely you will get. Now, omega-3 also helps with your cardiovascular health. Super important. All right? Take it every day and help with your cardiovascular health, but take it also during the fall and the winter because there's something going around that a lot of people are going to be getting this year. Resveratrol. I've been taking resveratrol for decades. This will soak up free radicals, help with the health of the mitochondria. It'll help to boost up your energy levels, help to get rid of senesced cells, and help with youthful gene expression by taking resveratrol and stacking it with things like C60, NAD+, and ubiquinol, and even clarity factor and goodnight formula. Guess what? You're slowing down the aging process and helping your neurons at the same time, and that helps with your basal layer for your skin. You ever wonder why people that take resveratrol look younger? Well, I just told you why. Vitamin B complex. This will help boost up the health of your mitochondria and increase your ATP levels. Why? B1, B2, B3, and B4 help with the electron transport chain, and that's what increases your ATP levels. You need ATP because that's the major energy source for your cells. When you have less ATP, guess what? Your cells don't perform as well. Another thing that's really fascinating is that people that get older have less ATP. So if you have more ATP, you actually are slowing down the aging process. Vitamin B complex also revs up the metabolism. Guess what? When you get older, your metabolism goes down. So if you're revving up your metabolism, that slows down the aging process. And vitamin B complex has vitamin B12. That helps many things for your body, but also your neurons. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the vitamin B complex to help protect your neurons and rev up your metabolism. Get the omega-3 to help with your cardiovascular health. Get the goodnight formula to have a rested sleep and to help to protect your neurons and consolidate memory. And resveratrol for the youthful gene expression. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. It's discount, all caps, the number 5, discount 5. You get $5 off. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Click the link in the description and buy the products.
Vladimir Zelensky at the White House, there to push President Trump for American-made Tomahawks. These are longer-range missiles that would give Ukraine the ability to hit deep inside of Russia. You can see the range there. It would give them the capability to go way past Moscow into other areas. There have been some signs the president was supportive of that request, but all of a sudden, this has been thrown into doubt after a 2.5-hour phone call with Vladimir Putin that came at the request of the Kremlin. Now the president says he will meet with Putin within weeks. He did say the Tomahawks came up in the phone call.
I did actually say, would you mind if I gave a couple of thousand Tomahawks to your opposition? I did say that to him. I said it just that way. He didn't like the idea. He really didn't like the idea. No, I said it that way. You have to be a little bit lighthearted sometimes, Adam. So, wouldn't anybody? I mean, it's been in the news. Who wouldn't do that?
Let's get right to CNN's Elena Tree.
Frontify simplifies brand management by centralizing guidelines, logos, icons, images, videos, and templates.
Let's get right to CNN's Elena Tree at the White House with the expectations for today's meeting and this probable meeting with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, I think the Russians knew exactly what they were doing when they tried to intervene, John, less than 24 hours before
New York City Republicans
Volodymyr Zelensky today at the White House. They knew exactly what was likely to be discussed in this meeting between, of course, the President Donald Trump, and Zelensky. And really the goal, I think, of that call was to try and make sure Tomahawks are off the table. Now, it doesn't appear that it is off the table, but I can tell you, John, that I know from my conversations with people at the White House that the president had largely seen the possibility and kind of this floating publicly this idea of providing Kyiv with these long-range American missiles as a threat to try and force the Russians back to the table. Obviously, we saw that phone call take place yesterday, and just on that lengthy phone call, things quickly progressed enough to have the president and President Putin vow to meet in just a couple weeks in Budapest to continue the negotiations. I should say that call with the Russian president came after weeks of the President Donald Trump being, of course, very frustrated with Putin. He was not living up to some of the commitments that the president and other Trump administration officials believe that he had made in that summit just weeks ago. in Alaska. But to turn to today's meeting, we do know that, of course, asking for more weapons is going to be on the agenda of the Ukrainians. And really, this meeting comes at a point where we've heard the president and many of his closest advisors here in the White House argue that it might be time to take a more offensive posture toward Russia. Now, did that change because now they're going to be having this summit with Putin? We'll see. I think it's likely to probably expect that they don't want to rock the boat too much as these negotiations are happening. And so we'll have to see what happens today. We'll have to see what the Zelensky asks, of course, and what Trump is willing to provide. But just to go back to the Tomahawks, I think it's important to know what exactly they do, because they would provide Ukraine with the ability to strike targets inside Russia at a long range, something that the Ukrainians haven't been able to do. But part of the reason they're so controversial is because they're American made and largely would likely have to be American operated. And that's exactly what Putin had brought up in his call with Trump yesterday. So a lot to watch for today as we expect Zelensky to arrive later this morning.
Yes, possible Vladimir Putin bought himself another couple weeks. At least by floating the idea of these face-to-face meetings. The latest train at the White House today. We're going to have to watch very, very closely. Thank you.
Joining me now with more is Ukrainian Parliament member Alexei Goncharenko. Thank you so much for being here with us. Really appreciate it. So as we heard there, President Zelensky hoping to get those Tomahawk missiles from the U.S. when President Trump spent 2.5 hours on the phone with Vladimir Putin. How did that call change the mood in Ukraine overnight?
Hi, and really, like, the new hope is born, I could say, because we see that President Trump actively involved and he is actively working on establishing peace in Ukraine, and that is great. Now his hands are free after the success in the Middle East, and I hope that this success will lead him to next success, stopping the war in Ukraine. Also, we see that Trump understood what language works with Putin when now he speaks much more tough about Russia, and when he speaks about possible delivery to Ukraine of Tomahawk missile, when he speaks about India stopping buying Russian oil, and India is more than 1/3 of Russian oil export, so it's super important for Russia. All of this really works, and I think all of this made Putin to call to Trump, and all of this made Putin to agree for the new meeting.
Yeah.
And it's definitely this new meeting will be super important. And I think that if Trump will go out from this meeting without agreement and without Putin agrees to stop the war, that will be humiliation for Trump. So now we have a really new hope.
I'm interested that you say hope, because certainly, I mean, there were some fears expressed that Putin always seems to be able to talk President Trump down from acting. It seems like every time Trump gets tough on Putin, they have a phone call and suddenly he seems to soften. So are you not worried at all that that pattern will mean that Ukraine won't get the weapons you need to turn this war around?
You know, all right, team, listen up. There's a national blood shortage. Who's got donation ideas? Chance of the President Suite? Classy. Dude, that's so much cheese. Save lives and help win your school $1 million.
This isn't the garage anymore. This is what comes next. You did what most can't. Turn one idea into thousands of shipments. One spark into...
You know, we need to stop the war. We need to end this war as soon as possible. Yeah, the best thing would be just to completely defeat Russia. Unfortunately, for the moment, we are not on the edge of this. So we need to stop this war, and it can't be made without speaking with Putin. So it's clear that Ukraine can't speak with Putin. Putin will not listen to us, and Putin just wants to take Ukraine, not to speak with us. So it's only Trump and Chinese leader, so it's only American leader and Chinese leader who can really make Putin to stop the war. I think that China is not interested in this. So United States of America is our main hope. And that's why, yes, we have concerns. And yes, this meeting can go different ways, but still it gives us a chance It gives us the hope. And once again, I think for Trump also understands that if he will meet Putin for the second time in several months without any result of stopping the war, it will be already humiliation of him, Trump, and United States. So I think Trump realizes this, and that gives us hope.
Interesting. You say, you know, you cannot achieve peace without the US talking to Russia. Are you at all worried that this meeting will happen without Ukraine in the room, that these big decisions might be made without Ukrainian input?
I know that today Zelensky is meeting with Trump, so he has an excellent opportunity to explain to President Trump what is acceptable for Ukraine and what is not. Definitely, I would like to see Ukrainian president also to be in this room, but probably it's not possible for the moment. And once again, it is more, when I heard after Alaska summit about possible meeting Putin with Zelensky, I didn't believe in this. First, I didn't believe that this meeting will happen, and as you see, it didn't happen. But also, even if to imagine that this meeting would happen, I don't believe this meeting can be fruitful. Because without United States, Russia should not be believed. Without United States, without guarantees of the United States, even if some agreement will be achieved, it will not be respected by Russia. So United States is absolutely essential. So I welcome the efforts of President Trump, and I hope he will continue.
Interesting. We'll see what may come out of that Zelensky-Trump meeting later today. Alexei Boncharenko, thank you so much for.
All right, we're going to go to Letitia James' coverage from Fox Business. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Clarity Factor. The Clarity Factor is going to get rid of that brain fog. It'll allow you to concentrate on tasks. Take it every day, drink it with filtered water, and over time, you're going to improve your dendritic connections. You're going to improve your neuroplasticity. You're going to be able to think faster. You're going to be able to have better memory. Please go to my store and improve your brain function by taking the Clarity Factor. Very powerful neurostack. Another great product to take to help slow down the aging process is to take Myotrol. Myotrol will help with the gene expression to build muscle. Do some resistance training, take the Myotrol. This has polyphenols, lignans, and flavonoids to help with the gene expression to build muscle and to maintain muscle. Myotrol will also help the health of your mitochondria, so you have the energy to maintain and build that muscle. Take this every day, especially if you're 40 years of age or older, male or female. You will also benefit if you're an athlete, younger or older, by taking Myotrol to help with strength for your sport. So please go to my store, take the Myotrol, and stack it with the Clarity Factor. Clarity Factor is a great neurostack, and the Myotrol is a great way to maintain and build muscle.
A full support behind Michael Henry as he challenges Letitia James to be the next Attorney General. Michael Henry joins me now, sitting right next to me. Here he is. Michael, is Letitia James vulnerable because she's being indicted, or is she gaining ground because she's so vigorously anti-Trump? Which is it?
No, she's vulnerable. I mean, look, in 2022 when we ran, we received 46% of the vote, and the climate of the state has changed. Upstate, there's been a lot of economic decay. They fired 3,000 correctional officers. Nobody even knew the term trade d'agua in 2022. So you had the migrant crisis on top of all this. And I think what's happened here with Letitia James is she's somebody that's gone around, just in 2022 alone, she went after the President of the United States, she went after Andrew Cuomo, and she went after Nikki Haley in the same election cycle. So she's somebody that's literally running around punching people in the face, and someone's finally gone back after her. And she thought she was going to be able to play this victim card. And what we're seeing is people are saying, you know what, she's been doing this for 30 years in politics, and it's just basically her having to deal with what she's done with everybody else.
If you're elected, can you reestablish the decent reputation of New York's judiciary? Because I think it's been slammed by Letitia James.
In the state, most of the judges at the Supreme Court level obviously run for office. When it comes to the appellate courts, that goes through the governor's office. But what I can do is make this a professional office, because there's over 700 attorneys now. It used to be 650. And bureau chiefs and deputy bureau chiefs throughout the regional offices in this state. And what I have the discretion to do as the Attorney General is to remove those individuals that are not, to me, this office is simple. You're the people's attorney. You're not the Democrat Party's Democrat National Committee's enforcer. And what you do is you put bureau chiefs and deputy bureau chiefs in to oversee industries that they understand. You work in conjunction with local and federal law enforcement, and you make sure that people check their politics at the door and they follow the rule of law. And in my administration, we're going to have a competency test. And if you can't work in this office, streamline it and make it efficient, you're not going to have a position in this office.
Competency test.
Correct.
Not a political test.
No,
a competency test.
Because Letitia James wakes up every day focused on three things: weaponizing the office against political opponents, attacking the president of the United States, and ignoring the issues that matter most to hardworking families in this state. And my administration is going to be a professional administration where we work in the best interest of the people of the state of New York.
President Trump says, look, he's not going to fund New York City if Mamdani wins. He doesn't like his communist policies. If he withdraws finance from New York, they don't get a bailout. That's bad news for New York City.
Absolutely.
Can you do anything about it?
Well, what we would do, obviously, with Republican governor, Republican AG, is obviously have a line of communication with the White House. And I think that's the key here, because we see right now, and look, forget about the fact that this kid's a communist and an anti-Semite. He's 33 years old, never had a real job. So when there's a blizzard and he has to get the sanitation trucks out, there's civil unrest, there's a structural collapse, the subway's flooded because of a hurricane. Does anybody think a practice smile and a word salad is going to be able to run this city efficiently? We don't even know who his deputy mayors are going to be. And at the end of the day, we are going to have to come in at statewide office and be able to work with federal government to make sure not only we get the funding we need, to make sure that the people of the city are, number one, safe, and number two, the economy doesn't collapse. And that's going to be the role of us next year when these statewide races.
I tell you, there's been some polling done, Letitia James versus you, Michael Henry. Where do you stand in the polls?
So we're actually polling ahead of where we were at this point, or even at any point in 2022, because her negatives have gone so high. And that was even before this stuff broke about the mortgage crisis and her apparently marrying her father to get a mortgage and signing all these mortgage documents wrong. For quite honestly, we knew this existed, but I think now, because we have President Trump who could put out on Truth Social a statement and now the whole world covers it, the resistance to covering her and her bullying people in some parts of the media doesn't work anymore. So people are seeing her for what she is. They don't like what they see. And then they see her going out there with Mamdani screaming unhinged at a rally. And they say, we don't want this. And it's not just Republicans and independents. There's a lot of common sense Democrats, especially in the big cities in this state, that have had enough. And when we focus on crime and economics, that's going to be able to bring them across.
Common sense Democrats in New York City. That's an interesting phrase, turn of phrase. Michael Henry, thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the digestive enzyme complex. This will help to reduce the load on your pancreas. It will help to digest and break down proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. This is super important, especially if you're 40 years of age or older. It's important to maintain the health of your pancreas because over time it starts to decline, no matter how healthy you are. Also, this has bromelain in it, which is fibrinolytic. It's going to help to break up clots. And digestive enzyme complex has the proteolytic enzymes that break up glycoproteins. This is the reason why I said you need to be taking this during the crisis of 2020. You're going to need to be taking this during the fall and the winter season, on top of helping your pancreatic health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the digestive enzyme complex. It's really important to reduce that load on your digestive system. And by doing that, you're increasing your longevity. Please go to my store and get the digestive enzyme complex. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. Click the link, go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Reopened the government yesterday for the 10th time. Now the government shutdown stretches into another week. A House passed bill to keep the military paid while the doors are closed, also failing in the Senate procedural vote yesterday. House Speaker Mike Johnson warning service members will miss their paychecks at the end of the month if there is no movement in the Senate. Sources telling me the Democrats have agreed with the extremists to keep the shutdown in place until after the planned No Kings protest tomorrow. More than 2,000 people expected across the country protesting. I spoke with the president in the Oval Office yesterday about that. Watch. Mr. President, do you think that the government shutdown is all about this rally that's happening this weekend, the No Kings rally?
I mean, some people say they want to delay it for the king. This is not a king. You know, they're referring to me as a king. I'm not.
Right. No, but just so that Chuck Schumer could go and say, I'm fighting Trump.
Well, Chuck is, at the end of the line. He's being beaten by everybody that they poll against. And I don't think it matters to him. I think he's just so dead that he'll do anything. They made one mistake. They didn't realize that that gives me the right to cut programs that Republicans never wanted. You know, giveaways, welfare programs, etc. And we're doing that, and we're cutting them permanently. We're cutting a $20 billion project that Schumer fought for 15 years to get, and I'm cutting the project.
Joining me now is White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett. Kevin, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here.
What has been the impact on the economy of this shutdown so far?
Well, so far, the economy is booming so much because of President Trump's policies that the marginal impact of the shutdown has been small. We're looking at the CEA estimate says it's about $15 billion a week, which is basically, you know, depending if they open up in a week or two, we're looking at knocking a tenth or two off of GDP. But there's so much good news happening in the world and so much reason to be buoyant and optimistic. And we see it everywhere in the data with, you know, capital spending booming and even employment in the household sector measures are doing great. That we think that the tenth or two, you know, it's not going to be visible. But if it continues, if they shut down for a month or 2 months, that really starts to move things because people aren't getting their permits. And so on, and even government workers aren't getting their checks. That'll show up in consumption, and so they need to start to do their responsible constitutional duty and get the government open, and then argue with us about what we should do on healthcare and everything else. But normal order is what's held in the U.S. You know, ever since we were founded, and we've got these radical left-wing people who are, you know, basically disregarding their Senate duty to keep the government open, disregarding their Senate duty to be the moderating force in Washington. And I think everybody in Washington is very frustrated with it. And as President said, he's got a lot more tools at his disposal. If after this March on Kings thing, the Democrats are still shutting down the government, then you can expect that the president's actions to cancel, you know, silly government programs the Democrats love and to take them away forever, that's going to ramp up significantly.
So that will be the tools after this weekend, closing down what? Programs that the Democrats want.
Programs, but you know, the bottom line is that we don't want anyone to lose their job. We want everybody to get back to work. There's already been a significant reduction in the federal workforce because of the work that DOGE and the president have done this year. And so we feel like the government has significantly improved in efficiency under President Trump's watch. And so what we got to do is get that government open and use the efficient government to start to serve the American people.
There's new nervousness this morning and certainly this week in markets, Kevin, after this credit stress fears rattled the regional banking sector. As you know, Zions and Western Alliance both disclosed issues in borrower fraud. Zions reported a $50 million loss last quarter. Western Alliance is now suing a borrower. It says to recover nearly $100 million. Even Jeffries falling, tied to the bankrupt auto parts maker First Brands, now under DOJ investigation. And as you know, Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan has been warning of credit market excesses after a string of auto sector bankruptcies. What do you make of this, Kevin? Are these isolated fractures or are these signs of a deeper stress in the economy right now with regard to credit?
I think it's
Well,
a
right
sign
now,
of
the
deeper
banking
stress.
sector has very ample reserves. But one of the things that I think has spooked markets is that
Will this be a Lehman event? No. But the problem is that the banking industry is over leveraged. And there's an AI bubble. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that a regional bank fails or needs a bailout, and that there is some sort of contagion that further exacerbates individuals being more prudent. They moved their money in cash, and you start seeing the burst of the bubble of AI. Now, does that mean it's going to happen this year? I don't think so. Now, if you look at today's trading, which is a Friday, all right, the S&P 500 is not doing so well. It's at 6,626. VIX is trading at around 24. Oil is suppressed. Bitcoin is, last I saw, was trading at 104,000. I'm not sure what it's trading right now at. But the thing is there's stress in the market right now. Now, a big part of that stress was last Friday's announcement of the 100% tariff increase on some goods from China. But when you put this mosaic together, stress with regional banks, tariff issue, the potentiality of over investment in AI, the circular financing and the circular usage of the AI infrastructure with the Mag 7, I would say that there's a high probability that it could burst in 2026. Now, I don't think that institutions are going to want a major sell-off at the end of the year because it's going to hurt their year-end data, because they're going to take the year-end data and then try to get new clients for 2026. So if they come in where there's a major sell-off in the S&P 500 by year-end, it's going to hurt them trying to get new clients in 2026. So it's better to pump up the market a little bit more and then have it burst in 2026, preferably in the first or second quarter, and hopefully recover in the Q4 of 2026. So I would say that there's probably more than 50% chance of an AI bubble burst in 2026. And I would say that there is only a 10% chance of a bubble bursting in 2025. Now, the S&P 500 support level is at 6,500. And you have a resistance level at 6,800. But who knows what happens with Trump? I mean, the moment he could say something as simple as the 100% tariff is off the table with China, and the S&P 500 could go up 100 points that day. He could say that there's further problems with China, and it could tank another 100 points. So Trump is very capricious, and because of that, you got to be careful. But I would say that right now it's probably better, or you have a higher probability of dollar costing averaging into the S&P 500 and benefiting from that target that I have of 6,800 to 7,000 in the S&P 500 by year end. It's closer to 6,800 than the 7,000, but it's all predicated on what happens with Trump's mouth. And there's, I feel as though there's manipulation in the crypto market. Something doesn't seem right. You can't go to 126, 125 for Bitcoin and then go down to 104 right now so quickly. What the hell's going on? There's manipulation going on.
I was looking at these two anecdotes this week that the Biden administration, like everything, was asleep at the wheel on banking regulation. We had an almost serious crisis with SVB, and we've got other things that are kind of like messes that the Bidens left us that we need to clean up. But the good news is that we've got really talented, top-notch people in place cleaning things up right now. And so we're very optimistic that we can stay way, way, way ahead of the curve on this. We've got the very best people on earth working on it. People like Mickey Bowman at the Fed and Scott Beck at the Treasury. And so we think that the market should recognize that there's a new team in town, and this team is going to clean up the mess that the Bidens left us.
Well, of course, then we're worried about trade as
Your child and I'm in prison. Why are you scamming me?
Saving for a trip to Vegas.
Well, of course, then we're worried about trade as well, particularly with this China tensions flaring up again. Beijing imposing tighter export controls on rare earth minerals and refining of those minerals. The Trump administration setting price floors across a range of industries, and the president threatened 100% tariffs by November 1st. The president also ready to impose a block on Chinese cooking oil imports after Beijing stopped buying American soybeans. The president made news yesterday with me when he talked to me about that 100% tariff that he's threatening. All this as he prepares to meet Xi Jinping at the APEC summit in Seoul later this month. Kevin, what should we expect? I mean, China controls nearly 70% of the global rare earth supply when it comes to refined rare earth minerals. How much leverage does China have, and how is the administration going to deal with this?
Look, the bottom line is that we're sitting here today, Maria, with the White House behind me, and today's going to be a very historic day. We're moving closer and closer for the president ending yet another war. He's got Vladimir Zelensky coming to town, and he's going to be meeting with President Putin. This guy is a world historic figure. For centuries and centuries, they're going to talk about how many wars he ended and how much peace he built in the world. Now, that we're not at war with China. We've had collegial relations with China. President Xi and President Trump are very close with one another, and we've been disappointed with some Chinese actions. But if you bet against President Trump's ability to land this plane, then you might win. But you will. Anyone who bet against him on anything else since we've been here would have lost. And I have high confidence that President Trump and Secretary Bessent are going to be able to get together with the Chinese and get this back to a place that's good for both countries.
Yeah, I mean, look, we know the leverage that China has. They're controlling that rare earth refined minerals right now. But the president has taken a stake in Mountain Pass, is trying to get supply chains back here to, level the playing field. But that takes time, right, Kevin? I mean, you're not going to get all those supply chains here overnight.
Right, it does take time to get the stuff going, but we've got the best team in the business, the team that gave you warp speed and got vaccines faster than anyone thought possible, working on it. We've got our old friend Peter Navarro. Like, I don't think I've seen him sleep in a month because he's working so hard on this project. And the other thing is that we've been checking in with the companies that are affected by this and checking how their inventories look. And I think that there's a lot of runtime and then a lot of uptime that you're going to see in the next 1 to 3 years. And so, China has a little bit of leverage right now. They could disrupt the world economy. Yeah, I guess if they shut it completely off. But then it would hurt them more than it hurts us. So we don't think they're gonna really do it. I think that this is a posture for negotiation. And if they're negotiating with President Trump, I'm highly confident that the interests of the American people will be served by the deal.
And then there's the Fed, Jay Powell.
Enterprise data teams are facing a turning point. Regulations are tightening, AI is reshaping the data landscape, and budgets are under immense pressure. Existing data integration platforms weren't.
And then there's the Fed, Jay Powell, keeping the central bank on track for another rate cut we expect later this month. The meeting is at October 28th and 29th. But he said that there's weakness in the jobs market, and it's a bigger risk now than sticky inflation. He's actually pivoting now away from talking about tariffs. Fed governors are showing a divide over how aggressively, though, the move should be. Christopher Waller is supporting a quarter-point cut. Stephen Myron, who I spoke with yesterday on this program, wants a half-a-point cut on this trade uncertainty. Kevin, he says now that we have new, aggression from China, it becomes that much more important to cut rates by 50 basis points. Although he just told us yesterday he's expecting 3 cuts of 25 basis points. Is that enough? You've been talking for some time about the need for lower rates as well. Do you think 3 cuts consistently of 25 basis points does it?
Well, the good news is that the Fed, the one thing the Fed is good at, they're maybe good at a few things, but this thing they're really good at is signaling what they're going to do ahead of time. And they're telling us now we're going to get 3 rate cuts of 25 basis points, and that's a start. That's a start. And then what you do after that is you watch the data, make sure that the economy continues to boom and inflation doesn't take off. And if you understand economics, you should know that that's going to happen with almost 100% certainty, because we're having this massive supply shock in the US, a positive supply shock because of increased productivity from artificial intelligence. And so when you have a big positive supply shock, then that puts downward pressure on prices. And it's just what happened, Maria, back when I first met you, pretty much back in the 90s, and Alan Greenspan, everybody was telling him because of the Phillips curve, the unemployment rate was low, that he needed to hike rates. And he said, no, the unemployment rate is low, but it's because of the supply shock from the computer revolution. And so I'm going to leave rates low. And he gave us 3 or 4 years of really blockbuster growth. And it's my expectation that that's what markets should expect right now.
Yeah, great analogy there. Kevin, look at the macro story for us. Where is the growth right now? And we don't have any data because of the government shutdown. So what are you looking at to assess the level of growth in this economy? How would you assess 2026 expectations?
I think that we're cruising around 4%, and that there's no reason why, with all the positive factors going, that can't continue. The people who tell you it's gonna be a lot worse than that, and we might be running a recession, are pointing at something that's actually good news and good for the economy. People don't recognize it, but if you compare Joe Biden's last year to President Trump's this year, plus extrapolate the current trends, we're going to reduce the deficit in 1 year by $600 billion. Think about it, Maria. A smaller deficit by $600 billion. That makes it so that interest rates can go down, whatever the Fed does. Mortgage rates could come down, and that means there'll be more home building. And there's, when you want to see really big booms, like 4 or 5%, it's because home building takes off. And we're helping that happen with this massive, massive new fiscal policy that's coming mostly from the tariff revenues. The other thing I'm looking at is in the jobs numbers that, again, on the household survey side, everything's booming just like everything else. So it could be we should just believe that. But on the payroll side, everybody's been saying that the sort of getting rid of illegal immigrants was going to be a big, huge negative shock to the job market. Now, it's true that non-native born workers have lost about 500,000 jobs this year, but native born workers have gained about 2 million, which is astonishing, right? People said, oh, they were taking jobs that Americans won't take. And the most interesting thing is that when you read the media accounts, sometimes there are unfortunate, racial connotations about just securing the border. About 1 million of the 2 million jobs created this year are from Hispanic Americans, because most Hispanic Americans are native born. And so there's just so much good news in the economy right now that I think that the outlook needs to be positive, but it's not inflationary because it's coming from this positive supply shock.
And by the way, the native born, the group you're just mentioning, they also don't want people cutting the line and getting in front of them. They also don't want the illegal immigration. Kevin, it's great to
their
get you.
salaries are booming too. Their salaries
are also booming. That's an important point. Good to see you. Thanks, Mark.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 helps to absorb calcium. It helps cells to go into apoptosis if they're infected, which is super important to take vitamin D3 for the fall and the winter season. And vitamin D3 will help with cardiovascular health and improve your bone density. Do some resistance training. Olive leaf extract, super important to take. Why? Because it's going to help with your immune system and your cardiovascular health. And zeolite. Zeolite will bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. You should take 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink it with filtered water, do this every day. Super important, right? And by detoxifying your body every day, you're going to improve your endocrine system, your immune system, and even your brain function. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. Take it every day, 3 small drops underneath your tongue, and drink it with filtered water. All right, now we're going to go to the Hill, and Glenn Greenwald is talking about John Bolton's indictment.
Federal grand jury in Maryland has indicted former National Security Advisor John Bolton on charges of transmitting and retaining national defense information. Bolton is actually in court as we speak.
Prosecutors allege that Bolton, quote, abused his position as National Security Advisor to share information about his day-to-day activities with 2 people who were related to him and didn't have security clearances. Bolton allegedly shared more than 1,000 pages of such information beginning in April 2018.
The indictment says that some of the information Bolton shared were top secret, classified details relating to national defense. Bolton allegedly shared this info in diary-like entries. The indictment reads in part, quote, at no point did Bolton have authorization to store or transmit the classified information that he sent to individuals 1 and 2 via his personal electronic devices and accounts, nor did at any time individuals 1 and 2 have authorization to know or store the classified information that Bolton gave to them.
The indictment also mentions that in July 2021, a Bolton representative told the FBI that Iran had hacked one of the former National Security Advisor's personal accounts. The hacker then allegedly emailed Bolton and his representative saying in part, quote, this could be the biggest scandal since Hillary's emails were leaked, but this time on the GOP side. Bolton said in a statement that he was innocent and that he has devoted his life to America's national security and foreign policy. He also said he was President Trump's latest target, saying in part, quote, "These charges are not just about his focus on me or my diaries, but his intensive effort to intimidate his opponents, to ensure that he alone determines what is said about his conduct. Dissent and disagreement are foundational to America's constitutional system and vitally important to our freedom. I look forward to the fight to defend my lawful conduct and to expose his abuse of power."
President Trump reacted to the news during a press conference. Let's listen to that.
Food security is national security. Phosphate powers America's farmers, but global competitors like Russia and China threaten.
Senator was just indicted by a grand jury in Maryland. Do you have a reaction to that?
I didn't know that. You tell me for the first time, but I think he's, a bad person. I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes.
Of course, many reactions are pouring in. A senior fellow at the Brookings Institute, Norm Eisen, wrote on Blue Sky, DOJ has lost any presumption of regularity, and after the Comey and James charges, I am very suspicious of the Bolton.
Meanwhile, journalist Glenn Greenwald wrote on X, quote, "John Bolton spent his whole life demanding life imprisonment and even the death penalty for anyone mishandling and causing the leak of classified information until he was charged with it, at which point he screamed, 'Abuse of power!'" So, I'm actually interested to hear what you have to say about this, Niall. Not that I'm always interested to hear what you have to say, but it looks to me, and admittedly, I haven't gone over every exact detail of the case yet. We still have a lot of information to learn. I know exactly what John Bolton would say about this if this was anyone else caught doing this. That this is a very serious crime. He would overplay how serious it is. That is he's a kind of national security hawk. Transmitting classified documents to other people, even if it's your family members, is obviously against the law. Now we have to wait to hear his defense of why he did this. Was he aware it was classified? It's hard to imagine him not being aware of that. Now I can get into my dislike of how the government overclassifies information overall, which is why Biden and Trump, I was more inclined to let off the hook for not being aware that they had classified information to some degree. Although Trump could have given it back and we saved ourselves a lot of grief when he was told it was classified. But this is different than that. And I know everyone's on the Democratic side, or some of them are going to say it's political persecution. It could be political persecution and also completely legally justified and rational.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the difficulties of the moment that we're in is that anything that is in any way related to Trump all gets sort of thrown into the same bag together as if it's all exactly the same thing. It is certainly true that Trump has gone after or instructed people to go after Comey and Tish James and Bolton. That does not mean that the strength of the case against those three people are all the same. I think the one against Comey is extremely thin and hazily defined and not borne out by the facts that we do know. Now, maybe more will come out in court, we'll see that. In Bolton's case, I mean, the indictment just has a lot more flesh on it.
Yes.
It goes into quite a lot more detail about what he is alleged to have done, why what he's alleged to have done would have been illegal, would be illegal, would involve the transmission of classified information in an illegal way. It even includes in some of these emails, like there's one where Bolton to one of these people expresses what sounds like alarm at the idea that the person might have printed out the message as if he knows that it's classified and therefore it should be kept between these people who are sending it around themselves. I think that the part of this is if the conduct alleged in the indictment was borne out, it just seems honestly as if Bolton was operating out of a kind of sense of entitlement, that he's allowed to do it in a way that he doesn't think that other people should be. I mean, I've mixed feelings about Glenn Greenwald, but what Greenwald said there, I would largely agree with. If this were someone else, Bolton would be up in high dudgeon about it, I suspect.
Yes, a self-importance. He thinks he's Otto von Bismarck. He thinks he is, you know, commanding and controlling all the world's global affairs, that he's the foremost expert on it, and that he should. We and I had talked about this, that, you know, why, although I suppose this is over a time period where he was in the administration, if I'm
and following
and then it's like, why do you still have access to classified documents? I mean, this just seems to pose a problem in inviting people to enter legal jeopardy if they're having, if we overclassify everything and then you have access to classified documents, but you're not in the government. What is the point of that? It seems like you're likely to entrap yourself at some level going there. Now, again, I want to know more about what exactly, to the extent they can even tell us, and they'll say it's classified, but can't tell you. And again, the government overclassifies things. Now, the fact that Iran, however, did hack him and made a threatening kind of, you know, that gets into a serious national security issue. So there's that component of it too, that maybe there was actually a breach, so to speak, not just theoretically you did something wrong, but it had no effect.
Yeah.
There actually was an effect.
No, absolutely. And while you can make the argument about overclassification generally, I think across the board, in John Bolton's alleged case, in Trump with the Mar-a-Lago documents, in Hillary Clinton, I have never been one on the left to be like the sarcastic, there was a legitimate issue there, which I think should have been investigated. So yeah, I think these things are problematic.
Fascinating. All right.
Up next, President Trump is set to meet with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky.
Bolton should be charged, convicted, and hung from a tree in front of the White House. Why? Because he's a deep stater. And deep staters were trying to overthrow the power of the presidency of the United States. That's my take. They're traitors. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. This is a dual purpose supplement. This is a month's supply. It's a powder. It's a very high quality collagen. Shown on the screen here is the typical amino acid profile for this collagen. This collagen will help with your skin, your nails, your hair, your musculature, your bone density, and your joint health. Please go to my store, take this every day, and get healthy. Slow down the aging process. And do some resistance training to build denser bone. All right, let's listen in. It looks like Bolton surrendered to the federal court.
This November, New Yorkers can vote on an affordable housing fast track and other city charter reforms. Remember to flip your ballot over and vote on questions 2 through 6. Make your voice heard on the future of our city.
Former Trump advisor John Bolton surrendered this morning at U.S. District Courthouse in Maryland. Bolton faces 18 federal counts in the classified documents case. David Spunt is live from Greenbelt, Maryland on this for us this morning. Hi, David.
Hi, Sandra. He surrendered about 45 minutes ago. I asked him if he had any comment. He put out a lengthy one last night. We'll get to part of that in just a minute, but he said nothing as we have this video of him walking in the courthouse just shortly after his attorney, Abby Lowell. Right now he's being processed. We're told that he will make an initial appearance at some point here in the next couple of hours here in Greenbelt, Maryland. He is facing 18 counts in this indictment after a grand jury met yesterday. The charges of not only keeping top secret info, but sharing it with family members. The DOJ says he sent diary-like entries about his workdays at the White House and shared information classified to the top secret SCI level, the most sensitive, shared them on messaging apps and personal email accounts with those family members. President Trump reacted in real time from the Oval Office yesterday to the indictment.
I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes, right? That's the way it goes.
We were there as FBI agents raided both the Maryland home of Bolton and the D.C. office at the end of August. His attorney, Abby Lowell, said many of these classified documents were cleared for use while he wrote his book, Bolton noted the prior DOJ did not charge him, though Fox is told he was investigated under the Biden DOJ.
And the
Bolton
government's
said in
going
a
to have to
statement
come
that
back
former
and
boss Donald
show.
Trump, quote, "Now I have become the latest target in weaponizing the Justice Department to charge those he deems to be his enemies with charges that were declined before or distort the facts," end quote. And here's an interesting soundbite from Bolton in 2023 responding to a question about classified documents found in the possession of both then former President Trump and then President Biden. Watch this.
And it sets a bad example for the thousands of other people in the federal bureaucracy who have security clearances, because if the people at the top can be casual about it and then get away with it, that is not a good lesson to teach.
And Bolton now in court surrendering and will have his initial appearance. We'll follow it.
You know the problem with
this morning.
Bolton and Brenner and all these deep staters, they think they're above the law. They think that it's do as I say, not as I do. No. Convict the guy and hang him from a tree. Because guess what? He's a traitor.
David, thank you very much.
I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Ryan Tillman.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this heirloom barley. This heirloom barley has the micronutrients to provide you to slow down the aging process. Now, how does these micronutrients in this heirloom barley slow down that aging process? It brings down inflammation, it detoxifies your body, and it soaks up free radicals through superoxide dismutase. When you're taking this every day, it's a high density protein. It's a month's supply. You take it every day with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or even with milk, but take it every day. And what this will do is that by bringing down that inflammation and detoxifying your body and soaking up those free radicals, you're helping your immune system, your endocrine system, your brain function, your cardiovascular system. Take it every day. Go to my store and get the heirloom barley. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. Let's go to Bloomberg.
And also, what Bolton said, selective prosecution, vindictive prosecution. He's the third one. You have Comey, James Comey, the former the former FBI director. You have Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, and now you have John Bolton, who were all on Trump's perceived enemies list. And that's a hard motion to make, that you're going to try to get it dismissed because of selective prosecution. But still, if ever there was a case where selective prosecution was proven, it might be these cases. Although this case is different and it's more substantial than the Comey and James cases.
I want to piggyback off of that point. One of the fig leaves that the administration is using, at least, is that some of this got started under Biden. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think it started with the Trump administration, the first, with the book. But yeah, it was under Biden. It's been going on for a long, long time. So that brings up the question, so why now? Why are they bringing these charges now? And I think that feeds into the other two cases and perhaps more cases to come. And this is different because here you have career prosecutor in charge, and on the indictment you have all the names of all the career prosecutors, including career national security prosecutors who are signing off on this. Whereas with the Letitia James and James Comey indictment, it was done by an attorney who was put in there, an insurance attorney who was put in there last minute when the career prosecutor left, resigned, was fired. Depends on who you talk to, whether it's President Trump or the career prosecutor. And no career prosecutor signed on to that indictment. And she presented that to the grand jury with no experience in prosecutions by herself. So that's a real clear difference. And this is, a long indictment. It's a talking indictment as opposed to those which were kind of skimpy. So, there's so much going on here on so many different levels. And
June, we talked about the drumbeat coming out of the White House here. It wasn't just President Trump. It was Peter Navarro who talked about the memoirs when he joined us 1 month ago here on Balance of Power. Let's just rewind the tape and give you a listen.
That guy took
by his own admission, copious notes in places like the Situation Room, in places where national intelligence secrets were being done. And then he cashed in on that with his memoirs. And he's just been out of control ever since. He's a threat to national security. The guy should be investigated. If they find he's got what we think he might have, that guy should go to a federal prison.
Well, he has been investigated a lot, years and years of
That's right.
investigation. So, and who
That was a month ago, though, and it is pretty remarkable hearing Peter Navarro, suggest that you should be in federal prison. But I guess the question in our remaining moment for you, June, you talked about the note to Pam, the similarities when it comes to Comey, James, Schiff, we'll see. But isn't this case a little bit different than the others?
Yeah, it is different, and it's a lot more substantial than the others. And as I mentioned, one of the big differences is that career prosecutors were on the indictment and were so basically that shows that there was some level of career prosecutors who are not political appointees bringing this down. But I mean, remember General Petraeus? Do you remember his book and the leak?
Sure.
So he got a two years suspended on probation. So, I mean, this does happen a lot. And a lot of times you have, how many times do you hear people writing books after they leave an administration? And are they taking notes about it? Yes. And some of them are national security experts. So, why are they prosecuting this particular case is a question. But it's going to be years, I think, before we find out any real answers.
Wow. That means years worth of Bloomberg Law talking about this with the great June Brasso. We've missed you, June. Thank you for being ready for this particular one. We've got another indictment and another not guilty plea from John Bolton. Alongside Mario Parker, I'm Joe Matthew in Washington. We'll turn to geopolitics in Ukraine next on Bloomberg.
All right, let's see here. Let's take a look at let's listen to Victor James here. Victor Davis.
This isn't the garage anymore. This is what comes next. You did what most can't. Turned one idea into a brand that means business.
The Attorney General of the state of New York, Letitia James, she's the chief law enforcement officer, remember, of the entire state of New York. And she's been indicted by the federal Trump DOJ. And the charges are varied. She bought a property in Maryland. And that property she declared on a federal form to obtain a mortgage and also state on taxes. She said that in one case would be her principal residence and another that it would be perhaps a second home and not rented. So what's going on? Is that when somebody does it wrong, do you forget it and just say, let's move on? Because if we don't, we'll enter a cycle of ruinous tit-for-tat lawfare. Or do you say, we're going to hold people responsible who broke the law. We're going to stop it because there will be deterrence. Hello, this is Victor Davis Hansen for the Daily Signal. The Attorney General of the state of New York, Letitia James, has recently been indicted by a grand jury. She's the chief law enforcement officer, remember, of the entire state of New York. And the charges are varied, but they can be boiled down to she bought a property in Maryland. And that property she declared on a federal form to obtain a mortgage and various other considerations that would also state on taxes. She said that in one case would be her principal residence, and another case she said that it would be perhaps a second home and not rented. And as early as 1983, she had applied for an income property where she maybe mistakenly, but she wrongly described the property's square footage and rooms as a rental. And more importantly, she allegedly put her father down as her husband in this 1983 application. So all of this is coming to the fore, and she's been indicted by the federal Trump DOJ, and there's been an outcry. And the issue is not, it doesn't seem to me, she has never said that I never made a mistake on these forms. I was always totally honest. I think her lawyer said she made some errors, but they were insignificant. And by the way, if you're the chief law enforcement officer and Attorney General of New York, you should never be saying anything otherwise that you live in New York. That's by statute. The Attorney General must have her principal residence. There's some indication that she waffled on that as well. So what's going on? The left says this is Donald Trump's revenge tour, that if it was not Letitia James, but it was just some other person, the federal government probably would not have looked at it. That's probably true. But on the other hand, Letitia James, who ran for the Attorney Generalship in 2018, ran expressively on a promise to get then President Donald Trump. She even said, I have my eye on Trump Tower. And by 2022, when she ran for re-election, she ran on a promise to get Donald.
He's just reiterating what we know. But the thing is that Letitia James was going after the president and the former president. She wanted that her whole mission was to go after a political opponent. The Democratic Party weaponized the DOJ. The Democratic Party weaponized the judicial system to try to slow down the first term of Trump and to prevent him from getting reelected. And this is the reason why Trump needs to go after these individuals and hold them accountable. Now, what's even better, what's icing on the cake, is that they have improprieties that they're doing, and they know that they're doing it wrong, that they are fleecing the American taxpayer. They're getting paid. They're getting paid to do a public service, all right, and that pay is through taxpayers. And then they think that they're above the law and that they can do mortgage fraud, tax fraud, have classified documents for their book, give it to their children and their spouse on an AOL email. I mean, what the hell is he thinking? What the fuck is he thinking? Who has AOL? Where it is, so you have a deep state and you have a Democratic Party, and a lot of times they're aligned together, that was trying to slow walk or prevent Donald Trump's administration to be successful. And they weaponized the judicial system, and they were weaponizing it not just on Trump, but on his cabinet, on senators. This Arctic frost with the surveillance of the senators, 10 senators they were surveilling. This thing goes all the way back to Barack Obama. But Trump, if you listen to the liberal media, Trump is the tyrant. You know who the tyrant was? Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. But no, Trump's the bad guy, according to mainstream media. No. We need to hold these people accountable, right? And Bolton was a problem. Bolton was part of that deep state. Brenner, a problem. He's CIA. Comey, FBI. There was an orchestrated effort to try to demonize, prevent Trump from exercising his power in the executive branch, and they were trying to prevent him from winning the election. Why does the FBI and the CIA need to get involved? Why did Barack Obama feel that it was okay for him to try to swing the election? It's treason. That is treason.
It was a racialized campaign. She mentioned his gender, the fact that he was white. She whipped up crowds, and she bragged to Al Sharpton that she was going to get Donald Trump. This was the chief law enforcement officer of New York. So when she filed suit in the courtroom of Judge Engoron, a well-known liberal justice, she got a New York jury to convict Donald Trump. And it was an outrageous settlement. And at one point, the fine was $500 million, $500 million, $500 million. That was a crippling fine that was never heard of. And remember, when she did file the suit against Donald Trump, which was eventually challenged at a higher court and all but thrown out, the gist of the case was that he had the gist of the case was that he had overvalued a real estate property and unlawfully filled out forms that inflated the value, even though the Deutsche Bank who had issued the loan had no disagreement about the value of the collateral property, had no problem that the loan was paid on time, if not early, and in full to the profit of the Deutsche Bank. So there were no victims in this. No one was complaining. And yet she pursued it. What can we conclude? On the one hand, let's take the left view very quickly, that this is retribution, it's tit for tat, and if we continue this cycle, we're going to descend into a third world country status, where every time a particular party takes over control of the White House.
The thing is that if you let the Democratic Party get away with this, they're going to do it again. And not only did they do it to the President of the United States and to his cabinet, they did it to senators, and they did it to average citizens. Look at what was going on with the females that were at the city council meetings, explaining that they didn't like what was going on with their public schools and what they were teaching. And they were considered right-wing terrorists by the FBI. The judicial system and law enforcement were weaponized against the American citizen. And this is happening under Biden, or whoever was running the show. And we're supposed to let this just sweep it under the rug? No, you need to hunt them down. You need that they were hunters. All right, the Democratic Party were hunting conservatives. Now the hunted are now the hunter, and they need to be held accountable. The Democratic Party needs to be held accountable. The deep state needs to be held accountable, so this never happens again, ever, 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 ever. The only way to do it is more prosecutions and imprisonment. The sad thing is that educated people were cheering on the weaponization of the DOJ on American citizens and on Donald Trump and on his cabinet. You had educated people cheering on Arctic frost in the surveillance of senators. This is unacceptable, totally unacceptable. It's time to hold them accountable. And if found guilty under a court of law, they need to be executed.
To punish their predecessors of the other party. That's something that we should worry about. But on the other hand, we saw with Alvin Bragg and Letitia James and Fannie Willis and Jack Smith a miscarriage of justice. We all knew that those charges that these four prosecutors filed, would have never been filed had Donald Trump said he was not going to run again. B, they will never be filed against any other politician, no doubt. And C, if Donald Trump just said that he was going to run, but he decided he was a rhino or he was left-wing and he agreed with Letitia James' political views, he probably would have got off. He would never been indicted. So, and you can ditto the same attitude from Judge Ingraham. So do you just let that all slide, or do you look at what Letitia James has allegedly done? It's just simply a question, did she say something in writing on a form that was a lie? And did she do that as the Attorney General of New York? So yes, they probably gave her inordinate attention given what she had done in the past. But on the other hand, you give inordinate attention not just to your political enemies that have hurt you, but more importantly to high officials. If she was a campaign flack, if she was the head of the DNC, it would be one thing. But the Attorney General of New York is the chief law enforcement officer of a huge and important state, and she's got to be above suspicion. The irony
Not
is
just that, but when she was running, she said that she was going to go after Trump. Well, under what cause? See, the thing is that it was always stacked. Trump gets in, we're going to go after him. We're going to find something. We're going to find something. Now, you have the mainstream media saying Trump is like Stalin. Just show me the person and I'll show you the crime. No, that's what the Democratic Party did. Show me the person, Donald Trump, we'll find the crime. No, the Democratic Party needs to be held accountable. And they need to go to jail. They need to be prosecuted. And the mainstream media was in bed with the Democratic Party. They were pushing the agenda to demonize Trump. They were part of the apparatus that was tied in with the CIA and the FBI. And they should be held accountable too. Ali Velshi is just as guilty as Letitia James in trying to overthrow our government. The mainstream media was orchestrated to overthrow Donald Trump's administration. And that's the deepness of this. And they need to go after these people.
Commentaries about this indictment, people are using the very words that she used to remind people that Donald Trump should not be above the law. There's a final question, and that is, how do you end it all? How do you end tit for tat?
You could spend all day sorting your employees' expenses. Or you could let Rampton.
How do you end tit for tat or lawfare against Democrats or Republicans? Do you just allow all of these things that went on? Or do you remind the left that everybody is human, and if you really do want to fabricate charges, you better be above suspicion? Because unlike Donald Trump's Letitia James indictment, this is not involving anywhere the amount of financial loss, her case, but it's a clear-cut case. She either lied on forms or she didn't. If she did, she's culpable, and she should be prosecuted and convicted if she's culpable. In the case of Donald Trump, I don't think anybody, left or right, thought that he had done anything wrong. In fact, some of the properties that he listed were more valuable than even he listed. So is it, when somebody does it wrong, do you forget it and just say, let's move on? Because if we don't move on, we'll enter a cycle of ruinous tit-for-tat lawfare? Or do you say, we're going to hold people responsible who broke the law? And yes, we're going to give inordinate attention for those who wage lawfare, but we're going to stop it and remind people, don't do it, not because we believe that they're moral or that they're virtuous, but because there will be deterrence. And if they know, they being people who use lawfare, know that if they were to do it again, it will boomerang. Just maybe it would stop. Thank you very much, Victor Davis Hanson.
You gotta hold them accountable. You have to hold them accountable. Go after them. The hunted is now the hunter. And you gotta prosecute these people, and it gets even deeper. It's not just the mortgage fraud or the tax fraud, but there was an orchestrated effort to try to prevent Trump from winning the election, being reelected, and there was an orchestrated effort in preventing him from exercising his authority as president of the United States. And this thing goes all the way to Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and the DNC, the FBI, the CIA, and even members of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. The Boomer Boost will help with multiple systems for your body. It'll help with brain function, it'll help with musculature, help with your heart function and your vascular function, boost up energy levels and rev up metabolism. This is a great way to control A1C levels. It has 68 nutrients. It has a very comprehensive compound profile shown on the screen. You can read the label on my website. Take it every day. This is a month's supply. You can mix it with soft foods, filtered water, milk, or a smoothie, but take it every day. It's a great way to get healthy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. You're going to notice the benefits of this and the steady burn of energy within 72 hours, and you're going to have more vitality. And you'll be taking this over a year or so, and you're going to actually physically see that you're aging slower. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Make sure you do some resistance training, some cardio, stretching, balancing exercises, and eat properly. Really important. A holistic approach with proper supplementation is going to slow down the aging process. And Gladiator barley. This is a heirloom barley that will help to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals with superoxide dismutase, and help to build muscle. Do some resistance training, take the Gladiator barley, build up that muscle, slow down that aging process. And by detoxifying your body and bringing down inflammation regularly, you're helping your immune system, your endocrine system, your brain function, and your cardiovascular system. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. All right, let's listen in about the court.
Sometimes people think compromise means squishy centrist. It doesn't. The whole idea of a democratic society is that there must be a consensus, and it's a consensus that should be based on national dialogue. We must not become a hostile, factious, divisive society. We must be a society that has a broad consensus on certain very fundamental values.
This is Anthony Kennedy back in 2005. Joining us tonight is the former U.S. Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy. He has written a new book titled Life, Law, and Liberty. Justice Kennedy, thank you so much for being here. I read the book. It was a great read. Congratulations.
Well, it's a pleasure and honor to be here, and especially coming from you, who've written some wonderful books about our history and our great leaders, including the book about Washington.
Well, thank you. What did you take away from this process, and what you wanted to explore by writing this?
My beginning point was just to write down a memoir for my children and grandchildren who did not know about a small town in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s when I grew up. And it seemed to me as the writing progressed that it's very important in this day and age to talk about the marvelous potential of freedom of speech and to make sure that it is not undercut by a hostile, fractious discourse.
Justice Kennedy, you retired from the Supreme Court in July of 2018, and obviously a lot has transpired since then. You were the last Supreme Court nominee to be confirmed unanimously, 97-0 back in 1987. I mean, that was a different time, a different era.
think that the public and the legislature has every right to contribute to that debate. The Constitution's made for that kind of debate.
In your book, you offer some pretty strong concerns over where our current political discourse has taken us. You're worried about it. My concern is that partisanship plays too much of a role in the selection and nomination process for judges. Historically, presidents have appointed members of their own party to the bench, but there should be more emphasis on the other elements of and requisites for a good judge. You've said in recent days that you think maybe the modern Supreme Court now has become too personal, too confrontational in some of the ways they've written. What do you mean by that? Well, you study the court by studying the opinions, and the opinions are a little bit more personal, a little bit more confrontational than, in my view, they ought to be. We're there to disagree. We're sworn to disagree. We love to disagree. That's what being lawyers and judges and law professors, that's what it's all about. But we have to disagree in basically a friendly way. You know, you were often described by the media as kind of the man in the middle, the swing justice. You write about this in your book, page 217. While I did not pay much attention to the media reports about our work, it would be disingenuous to deny being called the swing justice by the press. That term always bothered me. The case is swung, not me. So it got to you a little bit. Well, the swing justice, it has a visual metaphor. You can almost see someone in your mind swinging from left to right, from right to left. In my view, my views, my ideas were consistent, and it was the cases that were different. I know you've still engaged with members of the court privately, and you obviously had two who served as your law clerks together, Justice Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh, back in 1993. What advice would you give them, or do you give them, I should say, about, reaching consensus, collegiality, that sort of thing, from your perspective now looking backwards? It seemed to me both Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh have the capacity and the personality and the temperament and the learning to make sure that the court is perceived by the public and in reality is a collegial place in which we have great respect for each other. I did an interview with Justice Barrett recently, and I asked her, they say you're helping to certify this move towards authoritarianism. How do you respond to that?
We're not deciding cases just for today. And we're not deciding cases based on the president, as in the current occupant of the office. We're deciding cases about the presidency. That's the criticism that this court is somehow empowering President Trump to trample on democracy. How do you look at it right now? Each branch of the government has a duty to obey the Constitution. There are many things that happen that cannot be brought to the courts. And even in those cases, in every instance, every day, every member of the executive branch, every member of the legislative branch has to remember to respect and understand the meaning of freedom and the meaning of liberty in the Constitution. What's the most consequential opinion that you wrote that you look back at and say this was it? Well, perhaps the flag burning case was one. We have to remember that the freedom of speech is not just for speech that we like. And it seemed to me that the flag case, difficult as it was for the...
Is it free speech to burn the American flag? Yes. But the thing is that doesn't mean that you should condone it. At a societal level. You can allow it to happen, right? You can allow it to happen because of freedom of speech. But in a public square, your freedom to say that is wrong, to desecrate the flag, because it's eroding society. It's about God, country, and family. And one of the pillars is country. Well, if you're burning the flag, that is eroding the pillars of society. Now, do they have the right to do it? Yes. But that doesn't mean that you should accept at a social setting this. When you see these people in public, or when you have coworkers, or even in some sort of public space, you can tell that person that you think it's wrong, that it's a desecration of the American flag and it's a desecration of the country. But it's their right to burn it. But it's your right to say you don't agree with them burning it. I personally think that it is absolutely, it is disrespectful to all the men and women that served our country throughout any time period. When you burn the American flag, that's a desecration. And this is the reason why I am so pissed off of the Harvard brat students that were protesting, and they had the encampment in the Harvard yard, and they rose the Palestinian flag above John Harvard in replacement of the American flag. Totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. Is it their right? Oh, it's their right for freedom of speech. But they're desecrating this country, and they're desecrating the ultimate sacrifice of men and women that served our country.
Of us who said that the burning was permissible was a great teaching lesson. And it was interesting, Brett, that, as I recall, 80 senators got to the floor of the Senate to denounce the court and denounce the opinion. And over time, that decision was accepted by more and more people. And that's part of what the court does. We give reasons, hoping that over time, we can be respected by a majority of the American people.
Last thing, in this memoir, you point out that in this life and where you are now, you give some thought about your legacy. How do you want to be remembered?
Because of my respect for family and my neighbors and for the American people in general, my purpose was to show that the law is something that all of us can love, because the law opens new avenues for us to see a world beyond.
Justice Kennedy, thank you so much. The book again, Life, Law, and Liberty. Thank you again.
Thank you so very much. It's an honor to be on your program, and congratulations on your own wonderful writings.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Able to have an advocate in the city, in Bracy Mansion, someone that maybe isn't his best friend, but one that he can predict, one that he can understand where he's going to go. I've heard other political people say that maybe Mamdani is the best foil for Donald Trump, because he can point to New York City over and over again as a city that's not performing the way the president thinks it ought to be. So to me, there's no way that Mamdani does not win. To me, as long as he makes no more errors. Last night's debate was a tremendous performance on his part, and good for him.
Well, there you go, from both our Democrat and Republican members of the panel. Cuomo was making the point, Jeannie, that if you elect Mamdani, you're going to have Mayor Trump, because tanks will be rolling in the streets of New York before election night is even over. Curtis Sliwa had a different take on this. Let's listen to what Mr. Sliwa had to say.
The president is going to back down to you, Andrew Cuomo. I know you think you're the toughest guy alive, but let me tell you something. You lost your own primary, right? You were rejected by your Democrats.
Why
and
do
you
you
have a
accept that
difficult
regard?
understanding that what the term vote is.
Right.
You're not going to stand up for Donald Trump.
I agree with Curtis.
I agree with Curtis. Mamdani gets in there. First of all, I mean, he's got the right accent for the job, Jeannie. I guess that's just not worth enough to put him over the top here. But does he have a point when it comes to Cuomo? We talked about the difficulty he had in the primary. his ability to recover seems impossible. Slee was essentially providing the same analysis you are.
Yeah, and Curtis Lee, I'm telling you, it's a debate to rewatch. He had so many good zingers. He was calling Cuomo the architect or the father, and Mamdani the apprentice. I mean, for people who don't like politicians to begin with, it's a great quip. And you know, Donald Trump was really the candidate on the stage who wasn't there. I mean, they kept talking about him, and it's a big deal in New York. There is no love lost for hometown boy Donald Trump in New York City, as we all know. And so, you know, Curtis Lewa really did have a really good comeback to Andrew Cuomo.
You know, the thing is
course,
that
so
she
did
just said that, and she's assuming everybody in New York is a Democrat. Not everybody in New York is a Democrat. I live in New York, and I'm a Republican. But she's now a fellow at Harvard's Kennedy School, the pantheon of intellect. God.
Millionaire donors and blah, blah, blah. And so that is an attractive message for New Yorkers. You know, for Mamdani, Trump's continued attacks are really helpful in a city that doesn't like Donald Trump that much. And one thing I would say about Sliwa, he's a different Republican because he's a leading Republican, obviously, but one that Donald Trump doesn't like either. I mean, he accused him of wanting to bring his cats into Gracie Mansion. And so, you know, for Curtis Lewa, he's walking this very tight line. He has a lot of cats for anybody who doesn't know. I love cats, so I have no problem with it.
No cats on stage last evening. And, you know, if you made it through this remarkable debate, you get to the softy questions at the end. Usually they'll ask you if you could say something nice about the other opponent. Last night it was about breakfast. Okay. And if you're a New Yorker and you're asked, I'm looking at you, Lisa Camuso Miller, who called the New Jersey governor's race based on a pork roll comment from Mikey Sherrill. The food stuff's important. If you want to protect breakfast bodega order, let's listen.
What's your go-to breakfast order at the bodega, Mr. Sliwa? Oh, eggs and cheese on a roll. No salt, please.
Mr. Cuomo,
Same thing.
Right down to the no salt. It got us talking here in the newsroom, Jeannie and Lisa, and this became a cause here for the program on Balance of Power. We thought we'd take a little
It would
survey.
be probably a bagel with lox and cream cheese.
Balance of Power team bodega orders. We're all part of this now. I'm just going to come right out with it. I'm a bacon, egg, and cheese on an English muffin guy. You can call me an elitist, but that's what I'm going to do. It turns out I might not be alone. Justin and America's producer, James Mahoney, both went bacon, egg, and cheese, but they went with the SPK, Mario. Salt, pepper, ketchup. Elizabeth, egg and cheese on a roll. CC, sausage, egg, and cheese, just like Nicholas. Salt and pepper on one. Pepper and ketchup on the other. So Nicholas is going no salt. How about you? We got a minute left.
well, I'm from Chicago, so we
Yeah.
don't really do the bodegas, but I do see in the movies where they walk in and say, hey, give me a chopped cheese.
Okay. Just like the movies, Lisa, you're the food expert here when it comes to politics. Did Cuomo just lose the race based on this one question?
Nah, but listen, it's pork roll, egg, and cheese all the way on a hard roll. That's the way to go. And the no salt just reminds us that these guys are old.
Jeannie, are you going to give me some tofu or something? What are you hitting at the bodega?
Worse. Number one, I feel so much empathy for Andrew Cuomo because I would have been like, the same, I guess. I have no idea. Because I would just do coffee. I would be doing my coffee. I have nothing. I defer to Lisa.
Yeah. Black coffee would have been a pretty cool answer, I have to admit.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, JD, Shan, Zeno, Lisa Camuso Miller. Thank you so much for joining us here about.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this C60. You can get it in MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, and in avocado oil. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. C60 is a molecule that's 60 carbons, looks like a soccer ball, or a fullerene is the technical term. Take a teaspoon a day, and what it's going to do is it's going to soak up free radicals. And by soaking up free radicals at the cellular level, your cell will be less stressed and its processes will be better. It's going to soak up those free radicals and help with the health of the mitochondria. Your energy levels will go up. You'll have more ATP. The cells and the tissues will perform better. By soaking up free radicals, even at the vascular level, you're reducing plaque formation. By soaking up free radicals at the cerebral level, you're improving neural health. You're reducing the stress of the neuron. You're improving the mitochondrial health in the neuron, producing more ATP in the neuron, more neurotransmitters, and over time, your neuroplasticity will improve. That means you're going to be thinking faster and you'll have better memory. In addition, by soaking up free radicals and bringing down stress levels and inflammation, you're going to improve your immune system and your endocrine system. So please go to my store and get the C60. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. It is cheaper per ounce to get the higher ounce configuration. Use discount 5, you get $5 off. Take a teaspoon a day every day. I've been doing this since 2016. It slows down the aging process. It also improves the basal layer of your skin so you look younger over time. You will feel the effects of C60 within 2 months, but you need to take it every day. Take a teaspoon a day. If you're not feeling well, it's the fall or the winter season, it's really important to soak up those free radicals. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. All right, let's listen in. Let's listen into Cash. We haven't played Cash Jordan in a while, so let's listen to Cash Jordan talking about Chicago's apartments.
Roku's self-serve ads platform. It's easier than ever with Ads Manager. Sign up today.
Penny for your thoughts. You think I could retire early? Question. Neighborhoods in Chicago are now war zones as sanctuary mobs pass ice. Ooh. Oh, they got that guy. Oh, he stole pandemonium. Oh, the guy's gonna rock. Oh, he threw a rock at him. Well, that ain't peaceful. Yeah, you better take that guy down. That guy better go to jail. This is ridiculous. These people are totally lawless. And look at how close they're getting. They're yelling at these agents. Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? These agents are in a hostile environment for sure. I can't even believe it's in there. Don't look like it. Oh, they got that guy. Look at him. Apparently, these ICE agents are here because some Trin De Aragua gang members rammed their vehicle and brought them to this neighborhood. And it is so dangerous because any of these people could be armed. We know there's gang members here. I wonder how many of these other people are gang members that haven't been arrested yet. Look at them. They're all yelling. All of them want an open border. All of them want more illegal immigration. Oh, are they dragging somebody else out? Look at them all screaming. Everyone's screaming and dreaming at the same time. Terrible. This is so crazy, man. What mayhem. None of these people are helping. They're not helping the situation by being out here. This would be calmer and more peaceful if everyone just ignored this. But no, they all came out. This is like the middle of the afternoon. Don't people work? Does anyone work around here? Or is this their job to harass ICE and attack federal agents? That might be their job. Look at everything on their steps, on their stoops, got the dog out. Like what, you gonna release that dog and let him attack somebody? This is terrible. Look at this. This is what the Democratic Party wants to do to America. And this is the stuff that Trump wants to come in with ICE and with the National Guard and fix. All right? There's a major problem with crime in the city, with illegal immigration, and it's time to clean it up. And the Democratic mayors allowed it to happen. They allowed it to happen, and we need a strong president that says enough is enough. We're not putting up with it anymore. All right, let's go back to Bloomberg.
We keep track of the Friday trade here. Thanks for joining us on the Friday edition of Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio. President Zelensky about to make his fourth appearance at the White House, and we've got our eyes trained on the West Wing, where media have gathered in the driveway waiting for his arrival. Zelensky just across the street at Blair House, enjoying the full services of the White House complex, so he's not far away. They're going to sit down for a conversation that we're going to bring you in the room for, remembering that we have had a few different versions of this, including Zelensky's first visit to President Trump in this term that devolved into a shouting match. He has since had better conversations, but new questions following President Trump's conversation with Vladimir Putin yesterday, in which he did not suggest that Tomahawk missiles were on the way to Kyiv. With me now in our Washington bureau is Bloomberg's Mike Shepard, who's also keeping his eyes on the White House today. Mike, what should be our expectations after this talk with Putin?
Oh, that really is the big question. Yeah. And it's more a mystery about how Trump will present himself in the U.S. to Volodymyr Zelensky this time around. Will the call with Vladimir Putin from yesterday influence to a great extent the call or the conversation we're about to see take place? Remember that Zelensky is coming to the White House with a series of requests. One of those, of course, is for some longer range weaponry to be able to strike deeper within Russia at those air bases where they've been launching those drone attacks, and also at some of the industrial production for the defense base of Russia. And yet the coolness that Trump signaled to sending Tomahawk missiles was a bit of a reversal from what he had said several days beforehand, where he had floated the idea of sending Tomahawks to bolster Ukraine, but also send a signal to Putin that it's time to come to the bargaining table.
Yeah, you wonder what Putin said to him yesterday, particularly to get President Trump to the point of floating another meeting. It was suggested later that that may happen. We don't know if there's in fact going to be a gathering in Hungary, but if that does happen, has Vladimir Putin done anything to deserve it?
Well, so far from the view of many foreign policy observers here in Washington, the answer is a clear no. And even in President Donald Trump's eyes, since the Alaska summit back in August, Vladimir Putin has not taken any really concrete steps, Joe, toward moving to the bargaining table to trying to end the war that he started with the invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022. And then prior to that, with the annexation in violation of international law of Crimea. So the Russian government's moves toward trying to reach this peace deal that President Donald Trump promised on the campaign trail, said could be done in a day, really has not been enough to satisfy Trump, who's been increasingly frustrated by this.
You wonder how the last three meetings will inform President Zelensky's posture and maybe check his frustration at a moment like this.
Well, he has learned how to read Trump a little bit better. And the more that he spends time with President Donald Trump, the better he understands how to react and, engage in some of the flattery that we have seen other foreign leaders exercise and show to the U.S. leader to try to win favor, to try to win approval and win over his view to join theirs, whatever it may be. And in this case, we will have to see if that will go as far as making that offer on weaponry. Now, Volodymyr Zelensky doesn't go into this completely empty-handed. One thing he is floating is this idea of collaborating with the US on drone production. And that is something where a lot of innovation has occurred in Ukraine. Necessity is the mother of invention. And they've really been able to advance their industry and to a large extent, Joe, on the cheap. And it's the kind of thing that could be replicated here. And there is an interest in the defense space and in the current administration in trying to adopt some of that innovation, sophistication. So we'll see if the US president accept some of that and perhaps offer something else.
Maybe that could be some common ground that would result in an announcement. Mike, thank you so much for helping us get ready for this. Shep with us live in Washington as we wait to hear from both presidents at the White House. And we are spinning a couple of plates today, as always. It's day 17 of the government shutdown. Lawmakers are not in town. But Washington is actually quite busy this week with the IMF meetings underway. And as we wait to hear from President Trump and President Zelensky, it's a great opportunity to bring you an important conversation with the IMF meetings underway now, with the UK Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, who sits down now with my colleague, who you know from Bloomberg Surveillance here on Bloomberg TV, Lisa Abramowitz at the IMF. Lisa, take it away.
Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate it. I am here with the Chancellor of the Exchequer of the United Kingdom, Rachel Reeves. Chancellor Reeves, thank you so much for being with us. You're heading into a pretty tough budget season. There's the expectation that taxes are going to have to go up and that spending is going to have to cut. How much headroom are you looking to build for yourself so you don't have to do this again in terms of raising taxes again and going through another round of cuts?
I think the British people recognise that the last year has been a challenging one, whether it is conflict in the Middle East, Russia's continued aggression in Ukraine, the need for higher defence spending, and also increasing trade barriers around the world have put countries under a lot of pressure, and no country, including the UK, is immune from that. But I've also been really clear that we will continue to meet the fiscal rules that I set out in my budget last year, and we will get debt down as a share of our economy, we will bring down the deficit, and we will balance day-to-day spending with tax receipts. When we get the full forecasts from the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility, we will make sure that we are continuing to achieve those things. In terms specifically of the headroom, the headroom has been lower in the past. It was as low as £6.5 billion in the last parliamentary session. Obviously, more headroom would be good, but there's always trade-offs because, of course, to build more headroom, you would have to increase taxes further or cut spending further. But we'll continue to manage that balancing act. But I recognise that in a world as volatile as it is today, having a bit more of a buffer can help absorb shocks.
You talked about raising the taxes, and in a previous interview, you were talking about particularly targeting wealthy residents of the United Kingdom. Is that really the focus right now? Is it broader based in terms of the tax raise you have in mind?
In the budget last year, I did increase taxes on some of the wealthiest, and we also increased taxes on business. I'm very mindful, again, to get the balance right. We want to attract talent to the UK and keep talent in the UK. I also want to make it easier for businesses to grow and stay in Britain. So I'll set out the individual taxes on November the 26th, but I want this to be a pro-growth budget that maintains Britain as a great place to start and grow a business and to bring in investment. And obviously, over the last few months, we've secured huge amounts of foreign direct investment, including from the United States with those big technology companies investing in Britain.
There's been a concern that if taxes go up too much on businesses, people will start to leave and individuals will leave. And there's been some anecdotal evidence of that, just personally, when I meet people from London and New York. I'm just wondering, have you kind of been aware of that and tried to reduce how much you lean on that lever?
Well, we made some further changes to the tax arrangements for non-domiciled people earlier this year, which I think have been welcomed. We'll continue to monitor the response to any tax. But I would also say there are many people choosing to make Britain their home. We've just doubled the number of visas available for high net worth individuals, for entrepreneurs, and for academics in some of the growth sectors to build teams in the UK. And we've no doubt that people will apply for those visas and we will fill those places. So the UK remains an attractive place, in part because we are securing investment from the world. We're reforming our capital markets to make it easier for businesses to raise finance in London. And we're reforming our regulatory and planning systems to make it easier to get things done in the UK.
How much are you planning to cut some of the welfare spending in particular, not just sort of day-to-day spending of the government?
Well, it is important to make sure that all budgets, including the welfare budget, are well managed, and we do need to see reform of our welfare system. We'll continue to make the case with that reform. We've already brought in some changes to something called the universal credit system to reduce the incentives to get the health-related elements of that. And just a couple of weeks ago, I announced a youth guarantee to help young people, not in education, employment and training, get back into work. Like many countries around the world, particularly since the pandemic, we have experienced challenges in terms of youth unemployment and youth inactivity, and we're determined to turn that around with particular programmes targeted at those young people.
One big question for a lot of people is the Office for Budget Responsibility and what they'll come out with in terms of downgrading the growth forecast for the United Kingdom. Do you have any expectation or understanding of what that growth downgrade looks like?
Well, the Office of Budget Responsibility, like other forecasters, use the past productivity performance to forecast the future. And it is true that under the previous government, over the last 14 years, both growth and productivity were underwhelming. And the Office of Budget Responsibility will update their predictions for the future based on the past. And it's my job as Chancellor to try and beat those expectations. And that's why we're pursuing policies on trade, investment, on planning, on permitting, on regulation and capital market reform, as well as through the trade deals that we're securing to make sure that our economy is well suited to benefit from global investment, from business and wealth creation. That's what we'll continue to do.
Chancellor Reeves, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
That is Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer in the United Kingdom. Joe, I'll send it back to you.
Great, Lisa, thank you so much. What a treat to have Lisa Abramowitz in Washington, bringing us that great conversation with the Chancellor. We thank you. It's live on Bloomberg as we keep our eyes on a couple of moving parts here, including an imminent meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky. They're preparing in the West Wing for his arrival right now. He was supposed to be there about 13 minutes ago at the top of the hour. These things tend to go late when these two gentlemen do sit down. We're going to bring you in the room so you can hear everything that the reporters hear live and unfiltered, knowing that these have taken on a couple of different shapes in what is now the fourth visit by Zelensky to the White House. He spent the evening at Blair House across the street, and he is, by the way, expected to hold his own press conference with reporters afterward. Now, we did hear from President Trump about this meeting yesterday because he spoke on the phone for some time. It was a 2-hour call, we understand, with Vladimir Putin, remembering that Zelensky wanted Tomahawk missiles, cruise missiles that could reach Moscow to help turn the tide in this war. President Trump suggested that he was considering that request. But then we heard from him yesterday following his call from Putin, and it's unclear where we stand. Here's the president.
We talked about it a little bit, didn't say much, but I do say to you, you know, we need Tomahawks for the United States of America too. We have a lot of them, but we need them. I mean, we can't deplete for our country. So, you know, they're very vital, they're very powerful, they're very accurate, they're very good, but we need them too. So I don't know what we can do about that.
Okay, so how many do we have? How many could we afford to give? And what difference would it actually make in the war? We thought we would talk to an expert, a voice you've heard before on this program and seen before on Balance of Power. Ben Jensen is back with us. He's director of the Futures Lab and senior fellow for the Defense and Security Department at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS. Ben, welcome back. It's great to have you on Bloomberg. Some basic questions to start with here. In terms of the efficacy of a Tomahawk missile, if you put this in the hands of the Ukrainians, could it in fact reach Moscow? What type of damage would it do, and what would be the impact on the war?
Sure, yeah. Great to be back again, and because you have empirical viewers, let's start with just the facts.
Super.
The Tomahawk, the way it works is it does have the range characteristics where fired from either in the air, can go further, or from the ground, not as far. but either firing trajectory would mean that it could reach strategically important targets in and around Moscow and other centers. This is why Putin really needs to try to declare a new red line, whether we have to like his 20th red line, who knows? But that's the real efficacy of it, its range. The other key factor isn't just that it can go far with a big boom, it's how it actually flies. The Tomahawk is amazing because this is actually old 80s technology. It actually flies based upon digital maps it creates the terrain beneath it. So this means it actually is less susceptible to GPS jamming because it's following its own almost version of terrain recognition. That also means it can fly lower than some radars can pick it up. So a Tomahawk is designed to fly long distances, to stay low to the ground, and then to pop up and hit the target so the defender has less time to react. That's why it's such a disturbing weapon for the Russians and so effective for the Ukrainians.
Would we have to also provide a delivery system, or could this be delivered by boat, by ground, by aircraft that Ukraine already has?
You know, Ukraine is second only to MacGyver in its ability to make battlefield improvisation. So I have no doubt the Ukrainians would find a way to fire it, even if we somehow forgot to deliver it, which our military is good, we wouldn't. The bigger question is how much intelligence would you pass with it? Are you helping train the flight profiles and routes? This has been an issue with Scout missiles in the past. So Tomahawk is a cruise missile. European countries have given other cruise missiles to the Ukrainians in the past. So you're right, it does come with a support package. It's not just you buy it off the shelf, you take it home and use it. You have to think about that intelligence package and then also how are you firing it.
Okay, let's talk inventories. President Trump, who was open to this idea a couple of days ago, says, hey, we need them too, and we cannot deplete. Do we have a sense of how many we have?
So not as readily as you think. Usually, you know, defense wonks like myself spend time like looking at congressional budgets to see how many were ordered and how many were bought. And then sometimes we don't get accurate numbers and the number shot in terms of actual strikes on enemy or much less in training. So what we do know is this is a high demand asset, right? You always hear that term. It's why it's ubiquitous now to say Tomahawk, which means there's never enough. And the bigger issue we have is that we just can't produce many of these missiles at the large enough quantities in a timely manner, especially when we're confronted with the world where one day we might fire a Tomahawk from a destroyer to hit a Houthi. The next day we might give it to Ukrainian to shoot something in Russia. But then the following day, we all of a sudden need to fire 1,000 of them in the defense of a treaty ally like the Philippines or Japan because of the Taiwan scenario.
Okay, so you mentioned Yemen, by the way. We've popped off a lot of these at Yemen, and they come at what, $1 million a pop?
Yeah, prices vary. Remember the way the defense contracts work, it isn't just a simple, you have to go for an average, $1 million a pop on average, but it depends on the block. And so my guess is we're probably going to give older inventory, lower block item Tomahawks to the Ukrainians to fire. Ones that we would be kind of like we did with some of the ATACMs that were nearing the end of their service life. So it's still an amazing missile. That's not to discount its power, but we're not going to be giving them the latest block that is more advanced and has maybe even some other features that would be of interest.
Could it change the strategy for Ukraine? Could it break this war of attrition, or would this just be an opportunity to provide a deterrent for Vladimir Putin? How would it be employed?
I tend to look at this, and this is where I think something is happening that's more interesting than gets credit in the Trump administration. I think that they're actually having what I would call a compounding coercive campaign right now. So the Tomahawks are actually a powerful deterrent and a powerful negotiating mechanism, even if not a single one enters Ukraine. Now Vladimir Putin has to reckon with the Americans can give the Ukrainians something that can hit targets with a bigger boom than the long-range drones attacks that are hitting Russian oil refineries. That is taken as compounding, because now think of the economic side. We've got the Indian oil dynamics going on. We've got this new call for a victory tariff to further hit Chinese support to Russia. We've got existing sanctions. We've got EU calls to create really interesting, like structured financial products, like essentially loans off Russian frozen assets. And we even had a bill in the US where we would essentially take, I think it's about $6 billion, it's a few $1 billion of Russian frozen assets and give it to the Ukrainians. So I actually see the economic dimensions of that coercive campaign as more deterrent than the individual Tomahawk delivery, but you can't separate them. I think the Trump team has developed a pretty sophisticated notion of this compounding coercive signal to try to really put the hard press on Putin in the wake of Gaza to then kind of put at least freeze the conflict, if not outright end.
Fascinating. It's a great theory. It makes a lot of sense. And I wonder, when you consider the hotspots around the world, the amount of munitions that we're providing and using. There was fascinating analysis from Colonel Sanders at Bloomberg Intelligence, who sits right in the newsroom with us and was out with a client note talking about a potential re-rating of the major defense contractors based on the massive orders for missiles specifically that are going to be coming. Tomahawk is a Lockheed product. Who makes it?
Well, remember, the weirdest part about most of these is because after that famous thing you call the Last Supper in defense, where you went from a lot of firms to a few firms, it's never as simple as
everyone makes everything. Like it takes every company to make something.
Yes. And never think about a missile as just a missile. A missile is a series of component parts, from a rocket engine to a guidance system to a warhead to avionics to a command and control suite. So usually the really interesting way to look at these weapon systems, and especially for Bloomberg watchers, as you're thinking about this, from how do you make bets upon the possibility of protracted conflict or the recapitalization of the American industrial base, you really have to look at it at that angle. Then you start making very different bets, because it turns out probably in a couple of years, we're probably going to have more rocket motors than we need, but we might not have as many drones as we need.
Wow.
And so you have to start to look carefully at what companies, who are their contracts, who are their suppliers. You then got to throw in weird curveballs like this whole critical mineral thing and the magnets. So it's never just as simple as Boeing or a Lockheed or a Northrop. All of them make phenomenal weapons. It's what part of the end item do they make? And then where do we understand those supply chains? And because of that complexity, that's why it's so hard to recapitalize the defense industrial base.
What a great answer. So it sounds like for the investor, you might be looking at a basket. You're buying the industry, maybe more than individual names. But where do the Andurils come into play here, and some of the other smaller, more nimble, more innovative defense contractors they're being profiled on 60 Minutes as the next big thing? Will that in fact change procurement at the Pentagon? Unmanned drone, whether it's air or water?
Who knows? I mean, in some sense,
you don't seem impressed at all.
So I'm impressed with some of their stuff, but I'll be more impressed when they have multiple factories that are mass producing.
Understood. It's about scale for you.
Yeah, it's about scale. And I also think a lot of the defense primes, despite the inefficiencies of federal procurement processes, a lot of our actually large primes are actually some of the most innovative companies you can find. It's American firms with DARPA that invent this thing called stealth. It's American firms actually working with DARPA researchers that invent the internet. So I have yet to see any small, amazing, disruptive company that has something as disruptive as stealth aircraft or the internet.
Really interesting.
What I do see, though, is that their willingness to create a more competitive, kind of Schumpeterian creative destruction landscape. So if nothing else, even if a lot of these new defense companies end up failing and failing tragically, they've at least forced interesting debates and energy, which is exactly what we want in capitalism. So I think they're serving a really important function. I think some of them will do amazing work, but don't discount some of the amazing stuff that these larger defense firms make.
How much did we just learn in the last 10 minutes from Ben Jensen? Come on every day. That was truly helpful, and I think we got a lot out of it, Ben. Thank you so much.
Always love
CSIS, which is just an incredible stable of talent and insight here on the program. Ben, thank you so much for being with us here. Keep this in mind when you hear President Trump and President Zelensky talking about Tomahawks, and when reporters ask about that. That could kick off at any moment. We're going to bring it to the White House when President Zelensky arrives. And of course, we're always keeping tabs on Wall Street. We've been talking stocks a little bit here with regard to defense, but let's get the big picture right now. Alexis Christophorus has Wall Street for us covered at World Headquarters in New York. Alexis?
Another roller coaster ride on Wall Street today, Joe. An earlier rally starting to lose a little steam here. Investors still trying to shake off those bank credit concerns at a couple of regional banks, which we know sparked yesterday's big sell-off. So right now, the Dow off its best levels, but up 117. The S&P 500 now in the green by about 8. The NASDAQ composite adding about 12 points, we'll call it. And precious metals pulling back from their record run. We've got gold down nearly 3% and spot silver off nearly 6%. Biggest drop there in 6 months. Now, stocks that led yesterday's sell-off are rallying back today. We've got Zions Bancorp up about 4%. Also, Western Alliance up now 2%, as a lot of investors believe problems at those banks are specific to those banks and don't represent a wider issue in the banking industry. Also, investment bank Jefferies up by more than 4%. It was caught in the storm for its exposure to bankrupt auto parts retailer First Brands. Well, Jefferies was upgraded today at Oppenheimer. And shares of American Express up 6.5%. Earnings there topping estimates as demand for its revamped Platinum card surged last quarter. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Alexis Christophorous. That's your Bloomberg Business Flash. Back over to Joe Matthew in Balance of Power.
Do appreciate it, Alexis. Thanks. We'll have more on the markets with Alexis.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the ashwagandha root. Ashwagandha root will help you to control your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels, help to bring down inflammation, boost up your immune system, and help with your cardiovascular system. Please go to my store and get the ashwagandha root. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order.
Oh, defensive weaponry to close the skies, as Zelensky likes to say. There's a live view if you're with us on Bloomberg TV or on YouTube of the West Wing entrance. When Zelensky arrives, President Trump will step out and welcome him inside, and then we'll be off and running with a bilateral meeting that will involve reporters, and we'll hear that and see it live and unfiltered here on Bloomberg. As we assemble our political panel with their take, and to the big questions, which Trump do we get? Which Zelensky do we get today? We've seen 4 different versions of this, or we will have by the end of the day. The first 3 were different in very significant ways. And we're joined now by Bloomberg Politics contributor, Democratic analyst Jeannie Sheehan Zaino, democracy visiting fellow at Harvard Kennedy School's Ash Center, alongside Republican strategist Lisa Camuso-Miller, the former RNC communications director and host of the great Friday Reporter podcast. Lisa, which Zelensky shows up today and which Trump will greet him?
Oh boy, I mean, Joe, it's hard to tell. I think that both sides probably are feeling very optimistic. There's been a lot of good news as it relates to what's happening overseas in terms of negotiation conversations, open conversations. I think a lot of it will be tempered by how the call went yesterday with Putin. And that's, to me, also, there's so many variables that could take place here. I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful that it's a productive conversation because it's one that needs to be had. And it's one that needs to keep the momentum going.
I have to admit, I'd be on time for this, Jeannie, if it were me. He's a half an hour late. Maybe that was in coordination with the White House. That we don't know. He's staying literally across the street at Blair House. Be curious to see if he walks or drives over. We can tell you, according to the press pool, by the way, that a military honor guard is waiting on the lawn, lined up along the driveway there to greet him. So he is not getting the red carpet, so to speak, but the same treatment as another world leader, Jeannie, which is a lot different than the feeling, at least, that we had on his first visit. Is this going to be contentious, collaborative? What's the vibe today?
Yeah, and I'm so glad you mentioned the Blair House, because my understanding is this is the first time in one of these visits he has been able to stay at the Blair House, which several people are suggesting is a sign of respect. In the past, I think he's had to get one of those hotels in DC that we've all stayed at. So that
It's a great point that you make, Jeannie. He was staying at the Four Seasons the night that the meeting went south, and forgive me for interrupting, but he has just arrived. There you see the two standing side by side at the West Wing portico. The president has got his arm around him, pat on the back. It looks, based on my view here, it's a little bit difficult to tell in the shadows that he's wearing the same black suit that he had on last evening, and they've just resolved inside the West Wing. So we'll be hearing from them a bit from now as the photographers follow them inside. Jeannie, it's an upgrade to get Blair House when you're used to staying in a hotel, even if it is the Four Seasons.
That's right. And listen, I love myself some Four Seasons, Joe, so I would stay there in a heartbeat, but the Blair House is an upgrade. So that people are saying is one sign that he may be looking forward to a meeting with more respect, but we never know. I mean, you and I were sitting here at the first meeting and, you know, we probably thought it was going to be a regular meeting, and it turned into something other than any of us had ever seen. And of course, a big question is J.D. Vance, is the vice president there? It's hard to know. But, you know, I do think on this tomahawk issue, one thing, and I thought Ben's point was so well taken, the politics of this, I think, are even more critical than the strategy from a military perspective. Because, of course, they already have the flamingos. They already have the ability to go into Russia and with a precision missile. And that hasn't changed the trajectory of the war. And most experts say that even if they got a limited number of tomahawks, it wouldn't change the trajectory of the war. But it was enough to get Vladimir Putin on that phone call yesterday, which, to Lisa's point, is really critical here. And Donald Trump seems to have altered his thinking, maybe, in terms of both the tomahawks and sanctions, with that bipartisan bill still hovering over. So Vladimir Putin and congratulating Donald Trump. They all know how to play him now. Zelensky in his suit today seems to have been able to speak his language on the sanctions and the tomahawks to a certain extent so far.
Press pool is gathering right now, so we could be hearing and seeing them shortly with more color from the pool. If you put yourself out there in the driveway, having just seen these two at the door together, the faint sound of music is emanating from the Rose Garden, what the president calls the Rose Garden Club. The soundtrack for this arrival, Chiquita by ABBA and Maria from West Side Story. Lisa, what will be the mood music for the meeting?
I don't know, Joe. Did you just hand me the auxiliary connection? I don't know, Joe. I mean, the whole thing to me is just bananas. This whole, don't even get me started on the Rose Garden conversation. I think more than anything, though, it's a great sign. Jeannie makes an awesome point about the fact that he's at Blair House. Great conversation, great starting point that the two of them meet one another. They meet at the same point of view. They're dressed similarly. I mean, all of these sort of small moments that we're looking for some indication about how the conversation goes to show that there has been a tremendous evolution in this relationship. And that, to me, I think is encouraging. I'm encouraged by that alone. And so I'll be curious to see how this conversation goes. But this relationship is one that has been fraught with ups and downs. The other point Jeannie makes is very good. Who knows who's in the room? Is it the vice president? Is it someone else? Is it Pete Hegseth, right? So all of these pieces are really set to be played out today. We'll wait and see.
Or maybe Andrea Bocelli, who was in the Oval Office a short time ago, Jeannie. That Oval Office, as the president likes to call it, the greatest show on earth, is quite the staging area. And so this is going to play locally for President Zelensky as well. I mentioned he's going to hold a news conference, maybe an impromptu news conference out there in outside, presumably the White House gates. He said he would do it in front of Blair House later on today. What's going to happen here following the meeting when both sides try to frame this to their own benefit? And how will it play locally for President Zelensky?
Yeah, and Joe, I'm glad you said they played Maria from West Side Story and not like I Feel Pretty or one of those. So I think Donald Trump.
I can't say they did, but yeah.
Yeah, let's hope not. And I love West Side Story. But, I'm glad you raised the domestic issue because that is critical. And it's on both sides, of course, for Zelensky, who is facing his own real challenges at home. And also for Donald Trump. I mean, we had Marjorie Taylor Greene out in the last few hours talking about the fact that Donald Trump has taken his eye off the America First agenda with what she calls a revolving door of foreign policy leaders and less focus on things like you just had Lisa Abramowitz on talking about the economy, affordability, housing. And so these, the domestic issues are critical. And I'm going to be very curious to see if both Zelensky and Donald Trump can do anything to improve their standing domestically. Because, of course, when you see the MAGA folks starting to cry foul when Donald Trump is focusing too much on foreign policy, that is a sign that he needs to get back to the business of the government, which is in its, 14th, 15th day of a shutdown. And of course, again, Zelensky has his own challenges at home.
Day 17, Jeannie, and nobody's talking about it. You're the first person I think maybe I said something at this hour. It is interesting how we go from one to the next, but that's what Flooding the Zone is all about. We have less than a minute left, Lisa. What are you going to be watching when the cameras open up and we see these two sitting there? What are you watching for? Is it like Jeannie said, who's on the other couch?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. I'm looking for who's on the other couch and I'm looking for body language. Look, I'm a communications person by trade, Joe, so I'm always looking for those nonverbal cues. How did it go? How did this early conversation when they walked in the door? What did the president talk about? How did it go? Who greeted him? There's so many. I mean, that's why we're here on the political panel because we love to little ins and outs and stuff. For me, I'm really looking for body language in the room.
Yeah. Excellent. It's going to be the cabinet room, by the way, and we're going into overtime here because we're just now watching the long cabinet room on Blue TV. And once the president here, they get the boom mics out, we will get up and rolling here. JD was asking the question, of course, who is in the room, and we're getting a sense of that now. JD Vance is sitting right next to the president at his right, and Marco Rubio at his immediate left, with the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and the Treasury Secretary, the next seat over. These are typically the sort of assigned seats that we see at meetings like these. President Zelensky in the White House. If you're joining us right now on Bloomberg TV, these are live pictures as we wait for this conversation to begin. There's no telling how long it will go or what questions will be asked, but we do have the press pool in the room, and we start now with live coverage here on Bloomberg TV and radio. Here's President Trump.
Has endured a lot. I mean, he really has. He's endured a lot, and we've endured it with him. To be honest, it's been a long time, and I think we're making great progress. So we're going to be talking about that today. We'll be talking about what took place yesterday with my phone call with President Putin, and I think that things are coming along pretty well. It began with Alaska, where I think certain guidelines were discussed, and we want to see if we can get this done. This was long ago into the Biden administration. I came here and we inherited this, and we'd like to see if we could finish it, end it. We want it ended. So many people have died in this war, and we're gonna get it ended. So I just want to thank you all very much. If you have a couple of questions, go ahead, please. In fact, before I do that, let me just ask the president to say a few words. Thank you, President.
Sure. Glad to meet you again, Mr. President. Thank you very much for the invitation. Again, my congratulations with your successful ceasefire in the Middle East.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you did it. And I think this is momentum to finish Russia's war against Ukraine. I think that, yes, we understand that Putin is not ready. I think not ready, but I think that I'm confident that with your help, we can stop this war. And we really need it. We see that they don't have successful steps on the battlefield, and it's good. I think that their army is weak now, but a lot of losses. They have a lot of losses, and the economy and people. And I think this is a very important moment. And I wanted to thank you, Mr. President, after our phone calls. Yesterday, I had a good opportunity to meet with the big American energy companies. They're ready to help us. Yes, after all these attacks on our infrastructure, Russian attacks, and etc. And I had also meetings, thanks to your team. We had meetings with a good military companies. We spoke about air defense, and I want to share it after with details where we are. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I think it looks beautiful in this jacket.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I hope people notice. It's actually very stylish. I like it. Please go ahead.
The Department of State and was hearing all the possible escalation, they were not allowing the Ukrainians to strike into Russia, hearing of this escalation.
Yeah.
Would your administration allow Ukrainians to strike into Russia?
We're going to be talking about that. That's something we'll be talking about. You're right. It's an escalation, but we'll be talking about that. Because it's the leader that we like. We like Viktor Orban. He likes him. I like him. It's a country that's a safe country. Done a very good job. He's been a very good leader in the sense of running his country. He doesn't have a lot of the problems that other countries have. And so we've decided that we'll be going to be with Viktor Orban, and he will, I think he'll be a very good host.
President Trump.
It's in Hungary, yeah. We're doing Hungary. To be determined, but I would say most likely it's going to be a double meeting. It'll be a double meeting, but we will have the president, Zelensky, in touch. There's a lot of bad blood with the two presidents, and I'm not speaking out of turn when I say it. It's a very difficult situation. You know, we just settled the war, and after thousands of years, I guess, people say anywhere from 500 to 3,000 years, and
I was in rooms, as you saw, because you were with me, a lot of you were with me last week, with leaders that didn't like each other, but they were able to get along. These two leaders do not like each other. And we want to make it comfortable for everybody. So one way or the other, we'll be involved in threes, but it may be separated.
President Trump. President Trump.
We'll see what, where are you from? Okay, good, good, yeah.
President Putin doesn't make the peace in Hungary. What is then? Do you have?
Well, let's see what happens. I mean, you know, what if? I think he will. I think that President Putin wants to end the war, or I wouldn't be talking this way. I think he wants to end the war. I spoke to him yesterday for 2.5 hours. We went through a lot of details. He wants to get it ended. I think that President Zelensky wants to get it ended. Now we have to get it done.
President Trump, Tara Casanova from Lindell TV, and although I love asking you questions, today my question is for President Zelensky.
Sure, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Our President Zelensky, President Trump, just brokered a peace deal in the Middle East that all Americans, both sides of the aisle, are very proud of. But to meet that deal, both sides had to make concessions. Our president has stuck out his neck in many ways to make a peace deal for your war as well. What specific concessions are you willing to make to end this war with Russia? Will you give up joining NATO? Americans have foreign war fatigue, and our president, as he said, we need our tomahawks too.
To me.
Yes, you
Okay.
Zelensky.
Thank you very much.
That's some question.
Thank you. So many questions in one. Thank you very much for your question. First of all, I think we need to sit and speak. The second point, we need ceasefire. Even now, you see in the Middle East, it's very difficult to hold ceasefire everywhere. In every war, it's very difficult. We want peace. Putin doesn't want. That's why we need pressure on him. We will speak with President today what we need. We understand what we need to push Putin to negotiation table. And as I said previously, so we are ready to speak in any kind of format, bilateral, trilateral, doesn't matter, just peace. This is important. And we don't speak about NATO or NATO. For Ukrainians, it's very important. Of course, it's our decisions of allies to decide where we are.
But are you willing to get
Yes, but the most important thing for people in Ukraine, which are under each day's attack, to have really strong security guarantees. NATO is the best, but weapon is very important. Allies on our side is very important. And between us, for us, bilateral security guarantees between me and President Trump is very important. I don't know, we didn't speak with details about it, but this is the most important document because United States is very strong.
Sir, President Trump, you're the middleman right now, hoping to end this conflict. Who is doing a better job negotiating, President Zelensky or President Putin?
I think they're both doing a great job in that sense. We have to get it done. We've got to take some of the hatred of each other. You know, they don't like each other. I say that in front of President Zelensky, but I say it in front of President Putin too. They have tremendous bad blood. It's really is what is holding up, I think, the settlement. I think we're going to get it done, and we have to make it long lasting. As I said in the Middle East, everlasting, right? Everlasting. And the Middle East is a much more complicated situation. You know, we had 59 countries involved, and every one of them agreed. And it's, you know, it's sort of amazing. Most people didn't think that was doable. This is going to be something I really believe that's going to get done. I had a very good talk yesterday with President Putin. I think he wants to get it done.
Right behind you. When we were in Israel with President Trump earlier in the week, we heard a lot about the difference in diplomacy between President Trump and President Joe Biden before him. What do you see as the biggest difference in diplomacy between President Trump and President Biden?
President Trump has a big chance now to finish this war. President Biden now is not the president, so he doesn't have a chance
to finish this war. And President Trump is really showed for the world that he can manage ceasefire in the Middle East. And that's why I hope that he will do this, and we will also have such big success. For Ukraine, it's a big chance. And I hope that President Trump can manage it.
I would say the biggest difference is one is extremely competent and the other one is grossly incompetent.
Sir, a few weeks ago in New York, when you two met, you said that you think Ukraine could ultimately take back all the territory that it's lost so far. Do you still think that's the case, or do you think there'll have to be some sort of?
You never know. You know, war is very interesting. You never know, do you? You just never know with war and peace, but you never know. Please.
Tomahawk supply to Ukraine as an escalation, yet it continues using similar cruise missiles like Caliber. And
Yeah, who are you with? Who are you with? You Ukraine?
But Russia continue even using the cruise missiles and also nuclear capable ballistic missiles in Ukraine since 2022. So do you consider providing Ukraine with the Tomahawk or similar missile as an opportunity to equalize the possibilities of Ukraine and Russia and push Moscow to the negotiation?
Yeah, sure. We're gonna be talking about that. That's why we're here. Okay, fair question. Exactly as he told you to say it, but we're gonna be talking about it. Okay? Yeah, please.
In Hungary would still.
You said India and Hungary? That's an interesting, India and Hungary. It's an interesting combination. Well, India is not going to be buying Russian oil anymore. And Hungary is sort of stuck because they have one pipeline that's been there for years and years and years, and they're inland, they don't have sea, And I spoke with the very great leader of Hungary, and they are, you know, it's very hard for them to get oil. I understand it. Hungary's in a very interesting position because they can't have ports, you know, they're surrounded by land. So we'll see what happens there, but India will not be buying oil from Russia. And they've already de-escalated and they've more or less stopped, they're pulling back. They bought about 38% of the oil and they won't be doing it anymore.
Helping you in achieving peace in Ukraine.
Who has?
First Lady Melania Trump helping in returning abducted Ukrainian children from Russian captivity. President Zelensky, do you appreciate those efforts? How do you assist them? And did you ask her to step in and to help you?
No, she wanted to do it. She just felt very strongly about the children. And she's done a really good job, I think, in bringing it to the fore. You know, we have a lot of children involved. Now, it's some people say it's 20,000 and some people say it's 300. There's a big difference between that, so nobody really knows. But she felt very strongly about the children. She thinks about the children all the time.
Okay, Tomahawk to Ukraine. What's going to happen if the United States is in a conflict and we need the Tomahawk?
Well, that's a problem. We need Tomahawks and we need a lot of other things that we've been sending over the last 4 years to Ukraine. We've been, you know, we gave them a lot. Now we have a different situation. We send it to the European Union. They pay for it and all that, and they have plenty of money. But it's beyond the money. You know, we need Tomahawks, so we need a lot of other weapons that we're sending to Ukraine. One of the reasons we want to get this war over is exactly that. It's not easy for us to give. You're talking about massive numbers of very powerful weapons. So that's one of the things we'll be talking about. Hopefully they won't need it. Hopefully we'll be able to get the war over with without thinking about Tomahawks. I think we're fairly close to that. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please.
Just to understand. So for today, of course, we want to finish this war, but the war is another technological war. You don't use just Tomahawks. If you want to target a military goal, you need thousands of drones. It goes together with such missiles. Ukraine has such thousands of our production drones, but we don't have Tomahawks That's why we need tomahawks. But United States is a very strong production. And the United States has tomahawks and other missiles, very strong missiles, but they can have our thousands of drones. That's why where we can work together, where we can strengthen American production.
And so just so that I understand, so you're suggesting kind of a trade. If President Trump okays Tomahawk missiles to help you launch.
Yes, it's about
then-
military goals.
then-
It's only about military goals.
Right, but then you would authorize some kind of an exchange. where
Yes, of course.
US
Yes, we have proposition. We have big proposition with our drones.
President Trump, I don't mean to be brokering an arms deal here, but is that something that you'd be interested in, Ukrainian drones?
We are, yeah, we have a lot of drones right now. We build our own drones, but we also buy drones from others. And they make a very good drone. I mean, drone warfare has really come to the fore over the last couple of years because of this war. I will say, there's nothing like the jets. You know, we knocked out a lot of drones in Israel. We were knocking them out for Israel. And we were doing it with extremely fast and powerful jets, following the drones and knocking the hell out of them. So it's, you know, we know a lot about the drones and we know a lot about the great jets, the great ones. The ones, well, and the B-52s, which were totally they were stealth, they were undetectable. So we have a lot of different weapons. And, you know, I have an obligation also though, to make sure that we're completely stocked up as a country, because you never know what's gonna happen in war and peace, right? You never know what's gonna happen. So we're gonna be talking about tomahawks and would much rather have them not need tomahawks. Would much rather have the war be over, to be honest, because, you know, we're in it to get the war over. We're selling a lot of different types of weapon, as you know, to the European Union. We're not in it for that. We're in it to get it over. We're losing thousands of people a week, thousands of people. Russian, Ukrainian, and mostly soldiers. I mean, mostly soldiers. But we're in it to see that end, and we can end quickly, and I think we can. I mean, I had a very good talk yesterday. We're going to be talking about it, but I had a very productive talk yesterday with President. We'll see what happens. But the war in the Middle East was far more complicated. We got that one done, and I think we have a good chance. I think President Zelensky wants it done, and I think President Putin wants it done. And how all they have to do is get along a little bit.
Can you give us an update on the trade negotiations with China or perhaps I think during that?
Yeah, I will, and I'm gonna let Scott do that, but I think we're doing very well. I think we're getting along with China. China's would like to have something as of this moment. We'll be meeting in a couple of weeks. We'll be meeting in South Korea, myself. I think so. It looks like it's going forward. I think so. They want to meet. We like to meet. I have a very good relationship with President Xi, and we're going to see what happens. But, you know, for years we were taken advantage of by China very badly. We were losing hundreds of billions of dollars a year to China. We really built their military, to think about it. The kind of money that presidents allowed to be lost to China was just insane. And then when I came into office, as you know, I put very severe tariffs. So we took in hundreds of billions of dollars in my first term from China. Biden let that go because it was so much. He let it continue, but he gave all sorts of exceptions. And by the time you look at it, Scott, I would say it wasn't the same thing. He would give an exception for anything. If you got up and went out to dinner, he'd give you an exception. So it wasn't the same thing. But I put on very serious tariffs. So we took in hundreds of billions of dollars, and then I left office. The election was rigged. I left office, and that was the story. Now I come back, and we are in a very strong position because of tariffs. We're in a very powerful position because of the fact that we have tariffs. If we didn't have tariffs, we would be in a very weak position. We would be in a weakened state. But with tariffs, we've made hundreds of billions of dollars, not only from China, but from others. And China wants to talk, and we like talking to China. So we have a very good relationship, and we're going to be meeting in South Korea a couple of weeks. And I just got back from a long trip. I'm going on another long trip And Scott, do you wanna say a few words on that, please?
Yes, sir. So the entire relationship, from the great perspective the two leaders have for each other. China did a substantial, unprovoked escalation last week. We were unable to get in touch with them. Since then, it's been IMF World Bank Week. They have had working level people here who, there have been meetings. The vice premier, who is my counterpart, and I will be speaking this evening at around 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then he and I and a delegation will meet in Malaysia probably a week from tomorrow to prepare for the two presidents to meet. So again, I think that things have de-escalated. We hope that China will show the respect that we have shown them. And I am confident that President Trump, because of his relationship with President Xi, will be able to get things back on a good course.
Is the hope for that meeting with you and President Xi some kind of trade deal then, or
Could be.
more?
Look, I think we're in a very strong position. We're getting, as you know, as of November 1st, I could move it up if I wanted. A 100% tariff over and above what we get now. So that would make it about 157%. And China doesn't want that, and they want to talk. And we're talking, and I think we'll make a deal that will be good for both. I think we will do something, but you have to understand, we never got anything from China. It was a one-way street for many years, for decades. It was a one-way street, and they became rich because of the United States. And frankly, presidents that, let's be nice, they didn't know. They just didn't know. They didn't understand what was happening to them. But I understood it. I understood it long before I ran for politics. I used to watch in amazement at how stupid our country was, how stupid they were. And we're not stupid anymore. And that includes with the European Union, that includes with Japan and South Korea. We're all we want to do is be treated fairly. But the fairly is hundreds of billions and even trillions of dollars coming into the United States. And it's our national security is secure because of tariffs. If we didn't have tariffs, we would have no national security. So it's very important.
We see China's help in ending the war in Ukraine. Do you need that to put pressure on Russia?
I'll be discussing that, but I'd love to see it ended before then. I mean, I think we have a chance of ending the war quickly if flexibility is shown on behalf, and again, we're not losing people. The United States is not, we're not losing people, we're not spending money, we're getting paid for the, ammunition and missiles and everything else that we're sending to the European Union, but to NATO. But it's very similar. If you look at the countries, I mean, it's very similar. And we just made a very fair trade deal with the European Union. And what we wanted, and we made a very good deal with NATO too. They paid for all of this. That's not what we're in this for. We're in it to save thousands of lives every week. Thousands and thousands of lives. That's why we're in it. And I think we have a very good chance of bringing this war to a conclusion.
Honestly, an excellent job. I think that a lot of people could agree to that.
Thank you.
I'm speaking as someone who lost my father in the war, so I know the human cost. What would your advice be to American leaders, to world leaders, to neocons, to TV hosts who often speak about conflict in abstract or strategic terms rather than the human cost and the human terms?
Look, my only statement is we have to get together. It's a very small group of people. It's the president, and the president. Okay, 3 presidents. And I'm the mediator president. And I'm mediating not an easy situation. It should be easy, but it's a lot easier when people understand each other, when they get together and when they like each other. We don't necessarily have that situation as far as like is concerned. Maybe it can turn around, maybe it can. But in the meantime, we'll have them keep a little bit of distance, so we're gonna see if we can get it done. This is number 9, okay? This will be number 9 for me. I've solved 8, including the Middle East, I've solved 8. This, I thought, would have been among the easiest. We solved, President Putin mentioned yesterday, Armenia, all of the different wars. He said it was amazing because but the big one that he was surprised that we were able to settle was the Middle East. He thought it was incredible. He was very generous in that sense. This should be something we're able to settle, and I think we will be able to settle. Yeah, right.
On that note, you will go down as a peacemaker, no doubt, and you will resolve this war.
Well, you know, we resolved 8 others. It's funny how people say that. If you get this one, every time I do one, they forget about that one. I solved 8 wars. Go to Rwanda and the Congo, talk about India and Pakistan. Look at Thailand, look at all of the wars that we solved. And every time I solve one, they say, if you solve the next one, you're gonna get the Nobel Prize. I didn't get a Nobel Prize. Like, somebody got it who's a very nice woman, very nice. I don't know who she is, but she was very generous. So I don't care about all that stuff. I just care about saving lives. But this will be number 9. But every time I solve one, they said, sir, if you solve one more, you're gonna be known as a peacekeeper. But to the best of my knowledge, we've never had a president that solved one war. Not one war. Bush started a war. A lot of them start wars, but they don't solve the wars. They don't settle them. And especially when they have nothing to do with us. I felt almost, I guess, just about all of these wars had nothing to do with us. But I saved tens of millions of lives. The Prime Minister of Pakistan said, I saved millions of lives in interceding on Pakistan. And you look at Pakistan and India as an example. That would have been a bad one, 2 nuclear nations, right? So I say this, this is pretty much the last one, although I do understand that Pakistan attacked, or there is an attack going on with Afghanistan. That's an easy one for me to solve if I have to solve it. In the meantime, I have to run the USA, but I love solving wars. You know why? I like stopping people from being killed, and I've saved millions and millions of lives, and I think we're going to have success with this war.
By the way, we look at.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
This is your 3rd time here. How different sitting across from the president is this time versus the 2 previous times here at the White House? And how confident are you hearing the success rate of solving prior wars that you can get this war solved?
First of all, about feud. The same feud because the same president. It's very simple. The next president will have another feud. Yes, about our relations with President Trump, I think we have important dialogues, and I think we begin to understand each other. Yes, and I know that President is briefed very well about situation in the battlefield, and he knows a lot what's going on the battlefield in Ukraine, and I think it really helps when you know a lot of things, a lot of details about one or another war. It helps a lot, but we're still in war, and I hope we can manage it.
You pointed out Spain. They said that like it's impossible.
No, Spain has not come through. No, Spain has not been loyal to NATO. Spain has been, they're the only one. Everyone went up to, as you know, I mean, you were 2% and they all went up to 5%, but Spain disagreed with that. I think Spain should be reprimanded for that. I think it's very bad that they did that, but that's up to them. That's up to NATO and Spain.
They cannot be expelled from NATO.
Can they or not?
They cannot, according to the treaty, but they also believe that they are protected by the European Union umbrella for trade.
Well, the other people, many of the other countries are in the European Union too. They're not complaining. Yeah, please go ahead.
Do you think you can carry the momentum from the Middle East deal over to this deal?
I do.
How does that?
Yeah, I do. I think we carry a lot of momentum, a lot of credibility. Getting Middle East done was very important. Nobody thought it could be done. That was one nobody thought could be done, and we got it done. And a lot of that was the big hit that we put on Iran with respect to the nuclear they took. That was an unbelievable military maneuver, the B-2s, and many other planes involved, by the way, but the B-2s. Yeah, I think nobody expected that to happen, and we had 59 countries involved, and these were countries very diverse. You had Arab, Muslim, Jewish, you had every country, Christian, you had every country, and many countries involved, and we got that done. And we got it done pretty swiftly after we set the table properly. We had to set the table properly. This should be one that we get done. And I think the table is set properly here now, too. And it'll be a great honor to get it done. And the Ukrainian people are great, and the Russian people are great. And obviously they have much in common, as we understand. They have a lot in common. So it'll be a great honor to get it done. Yeah.
On Venezuela, there are survivors of your latest boat strike. What happens to those survivors?
Well, I'll ask Marco to discuss that possibly.
Yeah, it's well known there's an ongoing narco-terrorist operation the United States has been conducting. As far as details of any recent strikes, we're not prepared here to announce all those details, but you'll get that information here very shortly.
How are the survivors when these are meant to be people impacted?
Yeah, again, I mean, we're undertaking these operations against narco-terrorists. That's what these are. These are terrorists. Let's be clear. And but as far as the details of any recent operations, when we are prepared to announce those, we will, as the president has consistently done. So you may get something on that later today.
Let me ask you, that was in a submarine, right? We attacked a submarine, and that was a drug-carrying submarine built specifically for the transportation of massive amounts of drugs. Just so you understand, this was not an innocent group of people. I don't know too many people that have submarines. And that was an attack on a drug-carrying, loaded-up submarine. Yeah.
Putin, is it your belief, as Mr. Zelensky said yesterday, that the threat of tomahawks and costs that Secretary has put it, is that bringing him to the table? The fact that it's kind of carried in.
I don't know what's bringing him to. I think he wants to make a deal. That's all. I can't tell you what's bringing him. Sure, that's the threat of that is good, but the threat of that is always there. Tomahawks are very dangerous weapons. They're incredible weapons. If you like warfare, it's one of the most accurate. We hit 30 Tomahawks in Iran after the B-2s did their damage. We sort of gave it a little capper with 30 Tomahawks from a submarine, quite far away actually, but they're an amazing weapon. They're a very powerful weapon, but they're a very dangerous weapon, and it could mean big, escalation. It could mean a lot of bad things can happen. Tomahawks are a big deal. But one thing I have to say, we want Tomahawks also. We don't want to be giving away things that we need to protect our country. We have a very strong country right now. We have a strong military. We have the greatest military in the world. We have the greatest weapons in the world. I want to get this war over.
Putin, Trump tunnel to connect Russia and Alaska. Are you interested?
I just heard about it. A tunnel from Russia to Alaska. I just heard about that one. That's an interesting one. I'll have to think about that. I hadn't heard that. We just did a nice road in Alaska. It's going to get us to a lot of minerals. So we have a piece of it, a good piece of the ownership because of the fact we made it possible. But this came up yesterday, a tunnel from Russia to Alaska. That's an interesting. What do you think of that, Mr. President? Do you have any ideas? How do you like that idea?
I'm not happy with this.
I don't think you're gonna like it. I don't think you like it. I don't think you like it.
Your guidance thing.
Well, we had a senator that wanted, remember, from Hawaii, she wanted a tunnel from the mainland to Hawaii. Then she said, well, we can't do that, so we're gonna build a railroad to Hawaii. Do you remember? She's a current sitting senator, Democrat. She wants a railroad to go to Hawaii, right? You know who that is, right? She's another beautiful. Yeah, please.
Aren't you concerned that maybe the Russian president is trying to buy himself more time?
Yeah, I am, but I've been played all my life by the best of them. And I came out really well. So it's possible, a little time. It's all right. But I think that I'm pretty good at this stuff. I think that he wants to make a deal. I made 8 of them. I'm going to make a 9th. I think he wants to make a deal. Well, I think that he should have won the war in a week. Yeah, I do think. And if we didn't give the anti-tank missiles, as you know, the javelins they call them, they got stuck in the mud. They would have been in Kiev very quickly. They were heading to Kiev. So, you know, in war, you have a lot of luck too. You know, people, weather has won war, and the cold and the heat and all things take place in war. But that was a very interesting moment when the tanks started rolling and some brilliant general said, let's go through the mud instead of going down the highway. Right? So they got a little bit lucky. But you know where they really got lucky? I gave javelins. That wasn't given by Barack Hussein Obama. He gave them sheets. You know, there's a statement. Obama gave them sheets and I gave them the javelins. And the javelins are a devastating weapon. And that wasn't given by Obama. That was given by, because at the time it was Obama. That was given by me. So it was like one of those things. And you had hundreds of them. They're a devastating weapon. We have a lot of devastating weapons. I'd rather not use them. But that was a big moment. You know, when the tanks got stuck, they got stuck. And call it luck or call it talent. I'm not sure what you'd call it, but it was a big moment in time.
Do you think Democrats will be and this war, like they did with the war in the Middle East?
I think right now the Democrats are really damaged, mentally damaged. They want to take 1.5 trillion with a T, $1 trillion and give it to people that invaded our country. They came into our country illegally from prisons, from mental institutions, gang members. They want to give them health care and take it away from our citizens. We're not going to do that. $1.5 trillion. They want to destroy our healthcare system. We're not going to let that happen.
CIA operations in Venezuela.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but some interesting things are happening around the world. I'll say that.
That Maduro offered everything in his country, all the natural resources. He even recorded a message to you in English recently, offering mediation. What should we do? He
has offered everything. He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to fuck around with the United States. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Let's go. Thank you guys. Let's go. Thank you guys.
We will never see a president like this ever again. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the turmeric. This will soak up free radicals and bring down inflammation, help the immune system and your cardiovascular system. And lignans. Lignans will help with your endocrine system, your immune system, and soak up free radicals. It'll bring down inflammation. Super important to take, especially during the fall and winter season. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. Click the link in the description to get to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. That's the end of the broadcast. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.